afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Good afternoon. We have breaking news coming out of the Middle East. You do not want to miss today's show. It's about to be hot and explosive. No pun intended. We are getting into the details about what's going on today. Okay. But anyway, we have news that Iran has got in contact with Hezbollah forces, and actually they are starting to don't look good for our gas prices, ladies and gentlemen, here in the United States. It is looking like we are going on a rise again. We are going to have it momentarily about what's going on here in the world map. We have details that is coming out of. Oh, wait. Well, if I get to the right place here. All right. There we go. All right. We are having the Gulf of Aden and the Red Sea. We have confirmation that Hezbollah forces have actually said that they are going to start shooting at ships if they are a part of the United States. Which that means all of them, because they have no idea which ones are which. So, I mean, they're literally just shooting at whatever. Seriously. But anyways, we have other details. Let me get over here so y'all can see about what's going on with. Well, hey, that's something. Let me see if I actually have. No, I do not. Okay. Well, it's okay. It's all right. There we go. So, let me get the sound in here real quick. I apologize, y'all. All right. There we go. Now, but anyways, we have now to see what's going on. We actually have confirmation that we have unleashed hell on earth in Iran. We have struck bridges, we have struck power plants and nuclear power plants, and we have decimated their coast. I mean, all up and down their coast, all up and down through here. It's totally in flames. And we will get in more details about what's going on with that as well. So do not miss today's show. We are live right now on YouTube, Kick, Twitch, and Rumble. So if y'all want to get hit with the show and don't miss any explosive news, I'll crack myself up. But anyways, if y'all want to actually have where we actually do webcam from now on, please drop that like button in the at the like part of the video. But anyways, and hit that subscribe button or the follow button, depending on what platform you're on. And we're going to get into more details about what is going on. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot going on. We are going to be going over Iran, Middle East. We are going to be going over what's coming out of Washington, D.C., and we are also going to be going over the Ukraine and Moscow, or should I say Ukraine and Russia conflict. So you don't want to miss, like I said, you don't want to miss today's show. It's we got a lot going on, and we're going to be a little bit lengthy today. We haven't been on for a while. We have been moving to a new house, y'all. We just got a new house. It's amazing. It is amazing. Really amazing. We will, once we actually get enough likes, we are going to be doing full webcam and y'all be able to see the place. It is amazing. It is amazing. But anyways, it has a bar and everything, y'all. Theater room, everything. It's awesome. But anyways, like I said, we are going to get back to what we were talking about with the conflicts here. Let's not get off topic. I apologize. But anyways, we are going to be having drawings here coming up soon. We are getting closer and closer to our goals on our channels. So, y'all can help with that by sharing our content, and also, um, we will be having drawings for every channel. So don't think that just because you're on Twitch, you're not going to get a drawing, because they're all getting drawings, their own separate drawings. So, but anyways, further ado, let's get to the new. Oh. Uh, 1 second, y'all. For some reason, we're having technical difficulties. I don't know why. 1 second. I apologize for that.
For the stream, I've kind of had to switch.
For some reason. Give me 1 second, y'all. For some reason. Come on, down we go. My cat's trying to get over here on me. Apologize, y'all. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. You know what? That's okay. That's okay. We can fix that problem too. Why is it? That don't even make no sense. Okay, all right, then we'll just do that. I don't know what's going on with that one, but I apologize, y'all. Just give me 1 moment here to fix this. All right.
We're on a little bit early tonight. That's because things are going absolutely berserk right now in the Middle East and also in Ukraine as well. We are seeing that U.S. forces have launched heavy airstrikes on Iran as chaos has erupted across the region again tonight. We're also seeing that Ukraine launched some of the largest drone attacks on Russia literally as going right now. And also, Kuwait closed the border amid huge attacks earlier today, and we're not sure when it's going to reopen, but right now we have a lot of breaking news, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, we're going to cover the breaking news that is happening live on air at this moment, as the United States Armed Forces are conducting massive strikes currently against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it appears the U.S. forces are now largely unleashing hell against the IRGC forces along the entirety of the southern coast, and we've also been able to hear of strikes within the area of Yazd in central Iran and the city of Tehran as well, with air defense fire still going off over the capital city of the Islamic Republic as they continue to try and defend hopelessly against the U.S. attacks that are apparently now raining down within the northeastern area and eastern area of the city. We've also been able to see that at the same time, the United States Armed Forces have seen that they've come under significant fire today by the Islamic Republic of Iran within the Kingdom of Kuwait, and reports came out that another munition appears to have exploded nearby to the area of the Mufak Salti Air Base over the course of the night. Meanwhile, we have also been able to hear that the state of Israel is preparing for a possible escalation with the Islamic Republic of Iran, as it is believed that the Iranians will most likely start strikes against the state of Israel here within the near future, and additionally, major airlifts have been conducted throughout the day by the U.S. Air Forces from EUCOM's area of responsibility into CENTCOM's area of responsibility. We have also been able to see the discussions between U.S. officials about the use of munitions or high-end munitions against the Islamic Republic of Iran is quickly running out already depleted stockpiles, and we've also been able to hear that the United States is currently seeing that the oil price is once again rising incredibly high, with Brent crude reaching $100 per barrel of oil once again as of this day just a few hours earlier. Additionally, there is also major breaking news coming out of the Russian Federation as well, as we are seeing the Ukrainian missiles, most likely Flamingo cruise missiles, are apparently flying towards to the Moscow area, and significant drone and missile alerts have been put out throughout the entirety of western central Russia, and we've also seen that strikes have been conducted inside of Crimea quite significantly as the Wildberries distribution facility has been hit. We've also been able to hear of other attacks being conducted currently within the Leningrad Military Oblast and the Leningrad Oblast within the Russian Federation, and additionally, we've also been able to get more breaking news out of the state of Ukraine that they are currently holding the line against the Russian Federation Armed Forces and are stopping any further advances and continuing to hit logistics quite heavily. We are seeing that at the moment, the tempo of the news that's coming out is incredibly high, and we will most likely be seeing that breaking news will be stopping our coverage quite a lot, especially here at this moment, as U.S. strikes are still being conducted as we speak within the Islamic Republic of Iran, and it appears that the damage, suffice it to say, is extreme or significant at a minimum. And so, Matthew, really quickly, what do we have that's breaking news that's coming out at this moment?
Okay, so right now we're tracking a lot of explosions across Iran. We've been seeing that Al-Vaz has been under a very heavy series of airstrikes, apparently over the last 30 minutes or so. There's been approximately 30 different distinct munitions dropped in that one location, which is very interesting, by the way, because Al-Vaz is the exact place that we've been seeing a whole bunch of earthquakes over the past week. That's where they've been happening inside of Iran, and now we're seeing over 30 different U.S. munitions being dropped just on Al-Vaz itself, so that's quite significant as well. Also, in the meantime, while we're tracking all that stuff happening in Iran, which are significant airstrikes to say the least, we're also seeing that apparently St. Petersburg, Russia is under attack, and there's the largest Ukrainian drone attack of the war taking place right now, and it looks like the Wildberries facilities are once again the target, and also we had heard some preliminary reports that Moscow might be under attack, but we're waiting to get some more footage out of that. But right now, that is the breaking news as I see it.
And right now, folks, I'm just going to make sure to quickly repost all of this onto the map so you can see what is going on, as we are now hearing that the Wildberries facility in the area of St. Petersburg is now under attack as well. Also keep y'all up to date on the map that we have here to show y'all everything that's going on, and let me make sure to show y'all, or at least post onto the map, the additional strikes that we have right now within the St. Petersburg area. We will be getting to the Ukrainian news most likely a little bit later on, or the breaking news as we're seeing it right now immediately on air, but let me see if I can make sure to put this down on the map so we can show y'all exactly what's going on. So at the moment, we have just been able to hear that strikes were confirmed within the city of Haramabad within western Iran, and we've also been able to see that air defense fire is beginning to fire heavily into the sky, with video evidence confirming this over the city of Tehran, particularly the eastern area of the city. Here's that footage right here. We see the air defense guns appearing to fire blindly into the sky, hoping to hit something, either a U.S. aircraft or a munition that's attempting to hit the city. While that air defense fire is still going on, and we are hearing eyewitness reports of explosions within eastern Tehran, apparently around the area of Pasaran, Lavazan, or District 8, we have also been able to see that outside of this news that has just broken inside of the capital city of the Islamic Republic, that additionally, it does appear that there is an ongoing drone attack that is happening live on air right now against the city of St. Petersburg. And we were able to see a small glimpse of the Ukrainian drone attack that's currently being conducted against this city as well, that just happened only mere minutes ago. And there's one of the hits.
Also, we were hearing that apparently jet drones are being used in this attack today, and the jet drones were allegedly on their way to Moscow as well. So that's also something that we're seeing as well. I just can't tell exactly what inside central Moscow is under attack. It could be the Moscow region itself is under attack instead of the actual city, because right now I don't see any evidence that Moscow city itself is under attack.
Right now, it does not appear that Moscow City is under attack, and we were able to see that before air. It does appear that most of the drones and also the strikes that are being conducted appear to be in the Moscow Oblast or in the greater area surrounding Moscow, which we'll be keeping an eye on heavily, because at any given moment, Ukrainian drones could possibly enter the Moscow air defense perimeter, and we could see heavy firefights between the Moscow air defense and the incoming drones, and also impacts on strategic targets within the city area. We also were able to see some additional pictures and videos that just came out mere moments ago, showing that it was the wild berries distribution facility in Moscow that did come under attack, and it appears to have already sustained damage by the time that this video was being filmed. Here's this clip. We hear one of the other drones coming on in. We can actually see it diving right down onto the wild berries and slamming into the roof. Additionally, we can also see that it appears a fire did break out at the wild berries facility, and we have another angle here of that strike. And moving us on from that clip, we've also been able to just get breaking news that's coming out right now from inside of Iran. So what do we got?
Okay, so we're going to put our Ukraine news on hold for a second, because right now I would say the more pressing thing is probably the Iran situation. Right now, that's truly wild what's taking place right now. Some of the heaviest airstrikes we've seen of the entire 13-day siege that the U.S. forces have been conducting across Iran is taking place literally right now tonight. So we do have a graphic courtesy of Global Military Info. He's got a rough draft here, which, by the way, is fantastic work. He's plotted out all the locations based on the OSINT available at the moment where there's been strikes tonight. As you can see, these strikes are way beyond the coast. These are more inland strikes tonight than we've seen during the previous nights. So before, we had seen that Bandar Abbas and a lot of coastal areas, like, for example, right next to Kuwait's border, inside of Iranian territory, we've seen strikes there, and they've continued tonight, but now they've expanded well up toward Tabriz, Tehran, and right now we're literally getting video evidence showing that Tehran is activating their air defenses right now. So Tehran is likely under an active attack, and they're shooting something down out of their skies, and we're hearing about the western part of Tehran apparently under attack of some sort. So some pretty large ones, I would say the least here. So Enforcer, we have some more news here about some more blasts happening as well, and also some more footage coming out showing some of the telecom facilities getting hit in Bandar Abbas, which is that coastal port city, and also a little bit more news as well, and some footage out of Tehran of that air defense activity going off right now.
Also, this one isn't breaking like the strike on Bandar Abbas. We actually already have that one on the map. So we'll be getting to that here briefly in a minute once we start covering the strike information from the whole country. But we were able to hear reports just 2 minutes ago of breaking strikes that were just conducted, apparently once more on the Yad City area, and we're understanding that there was an explosion heard there literally just minutes ago, according to reports that came out. And we also were able to see that apparently another confirmation of another explosion within Karamshahar also came out as well at the exact same time. Karamshahar is a city that is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, within the western area of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And really quickly to make sure that we get that correct, Karamshahar is in the Khuzestan province, directly along the Iraqi border. So we are seeing that a strike was just conducted in that area, so we'll be putting the marker down around that city, as that is the first time that we've been able to see that a strike has been conducted on Karamshahar, directly along the border, at least at this point of the strikes in the second phase. And we've also been able to hear that Yad City was hit additionally, which was already hit a little bit earlier in the night, about an hour and a half to 2 hours ago, and we're now hearing that it has sustained additional hits. The city of Yazd is a somewhat important city, as it's one of the larger and only population centers within the very central area of the Iranian deserts. To the east of Yazd generally stands nothing but desolation and the harsh desert environment that exists throughout the rest of the Islamic Republic of Iran. To the east, however, is the large population centers of the country, and intersecting Yazd are highways that travel north, south, and east, or more so west, into the rest of the Islamic Republic of Iran, making it a significant linchpin point for IRGC logistics and movement operations throughout this area of the country. We do understand that strikes could have hit a multitude of targets within this area, also including, and more importantly, just to make sure that we can find this quickly, the Yazd International Airport, which may be used as a drone launching facility at the moment, although we're not entirely sure exactly what is being hit within the area of the city of Yazd. We're also not incredibly clear what's being hit in a lot of of the other major cities that have come under attack so far, which we can see on this map, which includes Karamabad, Tabriz, Dezful, Avaj, as well as Bushehr, which has come under additional strikes, Shiraz, and also Konarak and Chabahar, although Konarak and Chabahar are somewhat clearer as they are generally considered to be significant port facilities of the Islamic Republic of Iran and their trade with India, or they are considered to be significant IRGC naval facilities along the coastline. We have been able to see that at this point, there has been a decent amount of videos and clips that have come out from the Islamic Republic of Iran throughout the entirety of the country, showing the strikes that have been conducted. And moving us on from the strikes furthest to the east and moving west across the coastline and into the Khuzestan province, we have been able to see quite a decent amount of developments, but it appears that we may have even more breaking news coming out at this moment. So what do we got?
So before we get into that, by the way, I see a lot of people asking about this. I want to address it really quickly before we get into the footage. We had heard earlier today, got very good credible information that B-1B bombers were en route to Iran, and we have seen that they've been active. They've been moving around and transiting to different bases across the last week or so. And we saw some information that maybe about 2 days ago, one B-1B went down to Iran. It hit a location there inside of Iran, and then it went back to a UK airbase. That was confirmed apparently last night that we heard about, but I think there could be heavy bombers involved in tonight's strikes. I think it's more likely than not that they're involved with it, especially since they were just used 2 days ago. So this could be the more widespread use, the first usage that we've seen so far, that heavy bombers are now involved in this. But once again, we're waiting on that confirmation. I would put the likelihood at very high, but unfortunately, what do you say about that? Because I see a lot of people wanting that addressed real quick.
I would say that there's a pretty high likelihood that strategic bombers are being used, considering that they have already been used on Tuesday. We would have a decent reason to believe that they're probably going to be used somewhat regularly at this point in strikes against the Islamic Republic of Iran and against strategic targets that may be further inside of the country. So I would say that it's probably a pretty decent likelihood, and we're most likely seeing that the B-1 Lancers are using a targeting pod to be able to use GBUs and guided ordnance to be able to pinpoint strike targets inside the Islamic Republic of Iran, most likely military resources or military equipment that the Iranians are using. So I would have to say it's generally what's the high likely case of their use, because we still haven't seen that any attacks have been conducted, particularly against Pickaxe Mountain, which many people have believed or hypothesized the B-1 Lancers might be used in a strike for.
Yeah, maybe so, possibly. But I would say, like, the fact that we heard 30 distinct munitions being dropped on Avaz alone just about an hour ago, the strikes in Avaz were one of the first opening salvos of this current strike series we're seeing tonight. And I would say it sounds to me like bombers are likely involved. I mean, it's possible that they could have fired 30 missiles, like from land-based launchers, maybe fighter jets, but it seems like it's more likely that would be a bomber or a heavy bomber that would probably be involved, and that would be my guess.
I would say it probably is the case. It could also be an F-15EX because they can carry a large amount of bombs as well, quite an unbelievably large number, but it could also be a B-1 Lancer, possibly. But moving us on out of that little brief update on the B-1 Lancer situation, and once again, folks, we're never going to be able to look at a bomb or an explosion on the ground and go, oh, that's a B-1 Lancer. The bomb's the bomb. We don't really know what the bomb's been dropped off of, but we'll probably get some confirmation in the next coming days whenever the B-1 Lancer was used, of when it was used and where it was used against, most likely. But moving us on out of that brief update and down into the coastline areas, reports did come out of explosions at Konarak and Chabahar Harbor once again over the course of this night, and it does seem that U.S. forces are still largely focusing, at least for now, on an anti-coastal and maritime and anti-ship campaign against the IRGC forces within the Islamic Republic of Iran, although we are seeing that this strike is far more inclusive tonight and is hitting a wide variety of targets throughout the country. We are able to see that Konarak, a smaller port city within this area, does house what appears to be some sort of a significant barracks for the IRGC and the Islamic Republic of Iran's forces, and we also understand that this area is used somewhat extensively by the IRGC's fast attack boat forces, which I believe are intermittently based out of the facilities at Konarak, and just south is the Iranian naval harbor of Konarak, where we also understand that a small number of vessels, particularly surface-going vessels, and some of the fast attack boats are based and operate out of. We believe that it's most likely these targets that are being hit, or some sort of stationary or mobile surface search radar system or anti-ship systems that are being operated out of the area of Konarak. We have been able to hear that strikes have also been conducted in Chabahar as well, and it appears that while we're covering this information, CENTCOM has just come out with a fresh statement. And it appears that CENTCOM has stated the following, and also given us fresh footage. Only 38 seconds of it, but hopefully this will be a little bit more clear and less vague than last night's posts. But according to CENTCOM statements, the U.S. Central Command Forces successfully completed the 13th straight night of strikes against Iran, July 23rd at 9 p.m. Eastern Time. CENTCOM targeted Iranian military command centers, drone storage facilities, communication networks, coastal surveillance sites, and maritime capabilities to further diminish the threat Iran poses to civilian mariners and commercial vessels transiting the Strait of Hormuz. The international waterway remains open for transit despite recent attacks from Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps. Commercial vessels continue to freely navigate the strait with U.S. military support. Unfortunately, it appears that claim is not entirely true, as we're not really seeing a large number of ships passing through the Strait of Hormuz, and it appears that that's, once again, largely one of the more inaccurate statements we're getting out of CENTCOM like last time.
Yeah, I would say so. Also, it does not appear that investors are buying into that anymore. We're seeing the oil price start to go up. We're seeing the bond market the yields are starting to go through the ceiling, which is a very bad sign, by the way, economically. So it seems like nobody's really buying into that whole idea of the Strait of Hormuz being open. Pretty much most people realize it's not too accurate.
Yeah, it's not too accurate, and I know just us saying that's about to bring in the barrage of people who know everything, from the TikTok army is about to come in here and know everything, and say the ships are turning off their AIS transponders and they're actually passing through the strait like magic, and for some reason the Iranians can't see them when they turn off the AIS transponder. It's like this amazing hack. I'm going to go ahead and just knock all that out of the way. That's BS. That's not happening. The Iranians can see the ships when they turn off their transponders because they have surface search radars that can pick up the ships and fire at them. That's why we've seen that several ships that have attempted to pass through have generally all been hit as of late. And while we are seeing the U.S. strikes in the area are most likely degrading these capabilities, it is not entirely degraded to the point that passages would be safe or doable at this current point. So I'm going to make that exceptionally clear before we move on, but CENTCOM did provide us with some footage of the strikes that they conducted. It actually appears that this right here is actually, funnily enough, an anti-ship missile launcher, from what we can tell. I do not know the exact variant of the anti-ship missile that this vehicle carries. I'm not that familiarized with Iranian anti-ship missile systems, but it does appear that CENTCOM was able to hit and destroy the system. We can also see a large IRGC fast attack boat getting hit as well in an unknown port facility. We can also see a larger IRGC or Iranian Armed Forces facility also being hit as well, and it looks like they were trying to hit some sort of a storage shed that appears to have already taken major damage prior, as most of the roof structure, it doesn't even exist at the point of this video, and was not bombed out from this current strike. We can also see some sort of a fast attack boat getting blown up right next to a tugboat. Very interesting sort of a strike right there. But that's the end of the brief footage that CENTCOM provided of the strikes that are currently being conducted against the IRGC and the Islamic regime's forces within Iran, and it does appear that at least as of the statement right now, they are announcing the conclusion of strikes, although we do not know how accurate that is. The announcements of conclusions of strikes and the announcements of beginnings of strikes, while somewhat important, generally do not indicate the actual length, time, or scope of the strikes that are being conducted while we're on air. Generally, these strikes can continue well on after even the announcement that was made, and they can also restart at any given moment of time in the midst of the day without any official announcements being made. So generally, we would understand that the strikes could still be ongoing at this moment while we're on air, and we're going to be keeping a very close eye for more eyewitness reports coming out of further strikes being conducted by CENTCOM air forces and naval forces within the area. Moving us on out of that statement from CENTCOM and moving us further down the coast, we were able to get a confirmation that anti-ship cruise missiles were launched from Iran towards the Strait of Hormuz over the course of the night, and we do believe that CENTCOM was attempting to attack and destroy some of these mobile anti-ship batteries, which were operational at the time in the midst of the ongoing strike campaign. Additionally, major strikes were conducted along the entirety of the Kashim Island area. We were able to see that humongous strikes were conducted on Kashim Island, and we were able to see some sort of a burning object overhead of the island in this brief clip right here, about a 9-second long one. It's unclear what that is.
I tried to figure out what that was. Sadly, it's just so low resolution because whoever was filming this, it appears to have been filmed on maybe like a phone camera or something, and they were zoomed in all the way, so it's extremely pixelated. I mean, it could be. I mean, I saw some people saying this was a U.S. aircraft that was apparently burning and on the verge of crashing or something, but we literally cannot deduce much of anything from this. And if I had to take a wild guess personally, it could be possibly a Reaper drone. We've seen the U.S. lose literally dozens of Reaper drones over the course of this war. Those are largely viewed as disposable in this entire conflict. So it could be one of those maybe, but I will say the navigational lights, if that's what we're seeing here, appear to be maybe a little bit different than that. I'm not really sure. What do you make of it? It looks almost triangular.
It looks like it's 3 different points of a fire on this thing. I can't tell you what it is, though. It's a mystery. I have no clue at all. Like, I'll be honest with you, man. I hate to say it. I don't even have any speculation on it. It's some sort of a burning object in the sky, and that's about all I can get from it.
Yeah, I can't really tell. Like, it's like one of those UFO videos. Everybody's like, oh, it's a UFO. It's like, well, it could be anything. I mean, it's like in like 260p. Like, I mean, you can't really tell what this is. I don't really even know, to be honest.
I mean, Thomas Edison filmed like one of the first movies on this camera that filmed this. I can't even tell what the hell that is, to be entirely honest with y'all. But it was burning over the skies of Kashim, and it was filmed very briefly. But moving us on from that, we were able to hear of a wider, broad scope of strikes being conducted along the entirety of Kashim Island, and we did get reports specifically that strikes directly along the coast of Tsutsa Port on the southern side of Kashim Island, and also on Mesen, were also conducted, and 2 U.S. missiles apparently hit within the area of Mesen Village on Kashim Island. This is showing us that most of the strikes, at least at this point, were conducted along the southern coast of Kashim Island, which most likely shows that anti-ship forces or maritime forces of the IRGC were being targeted and destroyed from this scope of attacks that were conducted on the island in just a brief few hours that the strike was ongoing during. Moving us on out of that, though, and we'll be returning to Bandar Abbas here in just a brief moment, but to make sure that we can get to what the poll is on and address that here really quickly, because it is actually quite an interesting question, especially given what we've seen tonight. The Khuzestan province, which its seat of governance for the province is the city of Avaj, has come under another massive round of strikes again tonight. And I cannot even begin to describe to all of y'all the scope and depth of these strikes that we're watching at this point within the Khuzestan province. Nightly at this point. The Khuzestan province is the most heavily hit area of the entirety of the Islamic Republic of Iran in this second phase of the war. And it's really starting to beg the question, even on our end, what exactly is of so much military importance within this area, the northern end of the Persian Gulf, that it's getting hit more than what we can even tell in the Strait of Hormuz. It's getting hit, from what we can tell at least by video, picture evidence, and eyewitness reports, about 2 or 3 times the amount as the IRGC forces within the Strait of Hormuz are being hit on a daily. And to get y'all into all of the clips and different videos that we have from Avaj City was the most heavily targeted and hit city from the strikes that were conducted in the past few hours. And we were able to see a brief clip here showing us some of the lights, or the more so dazzling lights coming from the ground, of explosions in the distance in the city, and also some of the sounds of the attack as well. Here's the clip. And we see some more of the brief flashes in the distance from the bombings that the U.S. was conducting within the city, showing us that whatever they're hitting, it's at an extreme rate. Multiple different epicenters of explosions were seen in the distance over a wide area. We also were able to see some more of the clips showing the strikes a little bit up close. And when I mean up close, I mean this is basically point blank. Here's the clip. You see them looking into the distance, and there's the hit.
Damn.
There's another. It's a little unclear what this is. It looks like, at least from the brief flash that we saw right here, that it was conducted near to some sort of a high-rise building across the street or a little bit behind it. It's very hard to tell which it really is, whether it was on the side of that building that we're looking at right there or a little bit further behind. It's a little unclear. Sadly, geolocation has proven to be quite difficult on this clip, and I also have not been able to do really a lot of geolocating before this stream. I've kind of had to throw down everything kind of on the map as quickly as possible because we had to get ready as fast as possible to get on the air and start running the show. So we don't really have a lot of geolocation, at least at the moment, from the first clip and all of the massive strikes that we saw in the distance miles away, or the second clip here, which appears to be a lot closer to the strikes that we're watching and the explosions that were seen within the city. Whatever is getting hit within this area, it was a humongous amount of ordnance that was flung into the city, and eyewitness reports stated that apparently there was about 5 explosions at the point of this report. Later, that number started to become a lot higher, and we were able to hear that there was something, I believe, around 25 to 30 independent explosions that were heard just within the Vaz city, which, mind you all, was not the only target hit within the Khuzestan province. We'll cover all the other ones here right after this clip from the Vaz city area. There was one of the strikes once more in the city. But moving us on out of all of these clips, and to cover all the other strikes that we saw, just within this one province in Iran, there was a strike that just happened on air within Karamshahar, directly along the Iranian border. We do not know how many bombs hit this city or the surrounding area, or the scope of the damage at this point, but we can confirm that the city was hit in the prior round of strikes. We've also been able to hear that Omatia, which has also been hit in prior strikes, has been hit once again tonight, and the Khuzestan government even confirmed this strike, which we didn't even have any eyewitness reports of, but the Iranian government did confirm that some strike of some type happened within the Omadia area. We have also been able to hear that further than that, we were also able to see that within the northern town of Amdameshk, which is almost in the very northern border area of Khuzestan, there were also reports of strikes that were conducted within this city, and it's believed that it was some sort of a weapons depot or a storage facility that was hit due to a cook-off that eyewitnesses described after the bombs hit the facility that was the target. So we're believing that some sort of a drone storage facility was hit in Andameshk. We're also hearing of strikes within the area of Karamshahar and Omadia, and a humongous number of strikes within the Avaj area. A lot of people are starting to wonder whether or not this is connected to the odd seismic activity that's also been documented within the Khuzestan province as well. As since the second phase of the war has started, multiple different earthquakes, usually somewhere around 5.0 or somewhere within that range in magnitude or less, have been reported or documented throughout the entirety of the Khuzestan region. And a lot of people are wondering whether this sort of an incident, or these large bombings of the province, are connected in any real way, shape, or form. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so this has been begging an interesting question because earlier today, a lot of people were making the connection between the earthquakes that are happening apparently right outside the city of Avaj and also these heavy airstrikes, literally some of the biggest airstrikes we've seen concentrated on just the city of Avaj and the surrounding area itself. It's kind of curious that it seems like there might be a connection there, but what is your opinion about that possible correlation? It looks like 49% said it seems like this is connected, the earthquakes and the airstrikes, and it seems a bit concerning, while 27% said it's totally unrelated and a complete nothing burger, there's no correlation to make, and 12% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I'll be honest, folks, I was generally dismissing people saying that there was something more to this because we've been hearing about these earthquakes. There's been several. That's around the 5 magnitude range over the last week or so, literally just outside of Avaz, in between Isfahan and Avaz. So that's a little bit interesting, especially considering that for some reason, U.S. forces decided to absolutely level the area of Avaz today and take out numerous targets. I will admit that's starting to pique my attention a little bit. It seems like there could be a correlation, but there's still too little evidence to tell really what that correlation might be. So I'm with the 12%. I'm kind of 50-50 on this one. I will say this, one thing that pops in my head, and this is just pure speculation, so I'm not saying this is a fact, just take it for Matt's opinion here, is you might recall that China was recently caught testing nuclear weapons underground, and they were making it seem like it was earthquakes by using a technique called decoupling. This right here, I'm no nuclear expert, but this seems like it could be maybe something similar to that. But once again, that's pure speculation on my part, so take it as that. But it is in between Isfahan and Avaz, and Isfahan is a known nuclear site inside of Iran. So I don't know if they're testing something underground or what they're up to, but to me, it seems strange that the earthquakes and the strikes are happening very close together. But Enforcer, what say you?
Matthew, you're saying that you believe that these might be caused by nuclear bombs?
I don't know. Like I feel foolish saying that with certainty behind it, which is why I'm saying I'm 50-50 on it, and also I'm saying it's speculation. So my mind is jumping to that because I mean you got to admit there's some more indicators that's popping up that's looking more and more concerning about this. In my opinion, I know some people are about to be like, "Well, Matt, it's a huge leap to make," but I mean that's what they thought about China too. And then we found out that China was decoupling their nuclear testing underground, and it looked like an earthquake, but actually it was a nuclear test. And we found that out later through HUMINT.
How could it be a nuclear test if the epicenter is 10 kilometers under the surface?
Well, it's a decoupling. You know, that's the technique they're using. It's supposedly hiding and masking a nuclear test.
Yeah, but I mean, I thought decoupling was just more so making the singular explosion smaller. But I don't really think I don't think any of the Chinese explosions were at like 10 kilometers deep or anything like that. At least from what I know. And that's why I'm going to have to lean actually on my poll side to get to my answer here really quickly of the 12% that's saying that they're 50-50 because I can't really tell you with any certainty, at least in my opinion, what it could be. This is far too large for it to be caused by any man-made weaponry, outside of a nuclear weapon, that is, and a nuclear weapon at full yield. Decoupling explosions, I don't even think register at 5.0. I think they register even smaller than that, because North Korea's full-size nuclear tests that they conducted in the mid-2000s, those, I believe, were around a magnitude of a 5.5 and a 5.7. So if Iran was conducting a nuclear test right now with a nuclear weapon, these sorts of magnitudes on the Richter scale would almost be a full-blown nuclear test, more so than decouplings, because the magnitude is so large. MOABs, which are the largest conventional bomb that we have here in the United States, produce, I think, something like a 2.7 to a 3 on the Richter scale, and that's the largest conventional weapon that the United States has access to and can use. And we do know that the U.S. is certainly not using a MOAB on them, and even still, the magnitude would not be large enough to register as a 5 on the Richter scale. So I would say, in my honest opinion, it could possibly be a nuclear test. It could be a full-blown nuclear warhead that's getting tested underground somewhere out there, which I would say is somewhat unlikely because the Iranians would probably announce that immediately if they had a successful test. And considering that these are happening quite often at this point, I mean, they're happening almost every other day, apparently they would have multiple different warheads fully assembled and ready to test at this point, and they just keep blowing them up underground, and they're either not successful fissions to create the proper explosion, or they're successful and for some reason they're not announcing them, which really wouldn't make a lot of sense, but that's not completely out of the question that the Iranians might not announce it for some weird reason. But also, I would say it seems unlikely to me. And so that's why I'm kind of in the 12% where it's a bit of a 50-50 sort of a deal, because it seemed, I just can't really tell what it is, to be entirely honest with you.
Well, here's one thing. Doing a quick research on decoupling is, once again, I'm not a nuclear expert. So if somebody is a nuclear expert and they want to say, well, Matt, here's how it actually works, and we're obviously open to listen to that. So I'm having to do my own research on the spot to get the answers here. But a decoupled nuclear test is an evasion technique to try to mask the signature of an underground nuclear test. It's usually done in a salt dome under the ground. So it's done in a cavity that already pre-exists under the Earth's surface, and that's usually where they conduct it, and that tries to muffle the effect of an explosion from a nuclear warhead being tested underground. So do we know if there's any underground, like salt domes or underground cavities that might be maybe in that vicinity possibly? Is there any way to find that out quickly, or like to get an idea if it's even in the region?
Let's see here. Let me see. Okay, so these are quite small. They're called salt plugs, apparently. And it looks like they do not extend low below the surface, like that low, like 10 kilometers deep and whatnot. So it doesn't really look, at least from the quick kind of a search I could get, that sort of a geological formation exists within the Khuzestan region to make that likely.
Well, don't forget about the depth. Is there any large salt domes around that area? Is there a concentration like near the Avaz area? And don't look at Avaz city itself. Look at the surrounding areas as well if you see a map about it.
Oh, I'm looking at the whole Khuzestan province, so that's everything surrounding Avash for about 100 miles in every direction. and it doesn't really look like there's a load of them. I mean, they, like, according to the quick AI search, and I'm trying to make sure to find actual articles to back this up because, folks, the AI can be wrong on a lot of things often, so I'm trying to make sure to back this up. But according to the AI search, take this with a very big grain of salt, it looks like they're saying that there are very small ones. Apparently they're quite small in depth and they're not that common, and apparently there's a lot more in the Zagros range, which is apparently further off to the east, but I don't know exactly where the Zagros range is.
Interesting. So I'm seeing here that apparently there are some underground caves in that area. It looks like one of the biggest ones here is north of Hamadan in western Iran, but that's more up north. That's not really down there where we're looking at near Avaz. There are definitely some caves down there, especially near the Fars province and down below near that area. There's definitely some underground caverns that are pretty large around there. So it's inconclusive. We really can't say for a fact what it is, but there is caves there. I mean, they could try to attempt something like a decoupling test. It is possible. They do have underground caverns that they could do stuff like that, but we just simply don't know. I want to make that perfectly clear. We're not claiming that's the case. That's just purely my speculation.
One second. I think we might be looking at the wrong thing here. One second. Let me see. Okay, so there's one oil well within the Khuzestan province. And apparently they don't have public details of the deepest one, but it's believed that the deepest one, by public records, like an oil well shaft that goes down into the ground to suck up the oil to the well and then send it to a distribution facility or a refinery, is about 4,000 to 5,000 meters deep. But that's still not the 10 kilometers. It's still about 5 kilometers short at the deepest. So it's possible, and also I saw someone bring this up in the chat, the Soviet Union actually blew up a nuclear warhead in an oil well shaft, I believe in Kazakhstan, a very long time ago in the 1970s, and it made me start thinking, what if they were conducting a nuclear test in an oil well drill head, like they just dropped the nuclear weapon or the warhead down the shaft to the very bottom of it and then tested it there, and it looks like even still that just wouldn't be deep enough. So generally, from what we can tell, I would still say, folks, I'm in the undecided camp. I'm just not entirely sure there of what's going on in the Khuzestan province, and I'm not really sure if the heavy volume of U.S. strikes in the area has really any correlation to the earthquakes we're hearing of from that area. But moving us on out of that, a little bit of news in the Khuzestan region, and also that question that was captivating many people of what was really going on within the Khuzestan province, it is now time for us to move on back into Bandar Abbas, the strikes that we also were able to see within this area over the course of the night, as we were able to hear that the area of western Bandar Abbas had come under heavy attack, and we also were able to see video footage confirming that this attack actually hit telecommunications regulatory authority in the city, which we can see in this clip right here. And moving us on from that and on into our next clip, we are also able to see another clip of the strikes right here. But moving us on from these clips, it is confirming that Bandar Abbas was also heavily hit once again over the course of the night, and to show you all once more the strikes that have been conducted, just to show you all the scope of the damage that we've seen so far overnight. There have been reports of explosions within Tabriz, west of Tabriz, directly along the Iraqi border, Hamadan, Arak, Karamabad, Dezful, Avaj, as well as Odemiya, I believe if that's the way to pronounce it, Kashan, Tehran, in both northeastern Tehran and northwestern Tehran, Yazd, Shiraz, Bandar Abbas, to the east of Bandar Abbas, the area just north of Bandar Ejazk, Chabahar, and Konarak, which have all been the targets that have been hit in this recent round of strikes by the United States. And I do have to make it clear that this round of strikes right now is the largest strikes that we've seen in terms of the amount of ordnance used, the scope and depth of the strikes, and also the amount of targets that have been hit, which is apparently starting to show that CENTCOM has moved on with the idea that the office of the president had of broadly expanding the strikes across the entirety of the Islamic Republic of Iran, which may or may not be that great of an idea. But before we even get on into that discussion, right now we are starting to see the U.S. and global oil markets are beginning to respond quite heavily to the continuation of the war with the Islamic Republic of Iran, and we have been able to see that $100 per barrel of oil for Brent crude has once again returned back onto the menu. Apparently it's risen about 42% in price in just the last 20 days. So far, the conflict with Iran has been ongoing for about 13. So tomorrow is going to be the 14th 14th day or the second week of war with the Islamic Republic of Iran. And inflation expectations and interest rates are rising sharply once again. And it does seem that if we take a look as well, outside of this, at general WTI crude oil prices, it also appears that according to Google right now, WTI crude oil prices are hovering around $92 to $93 per barrel, depending on the trading value of the day today. So it does seem that the oil markets are beginning to react quite negatively to the situation, and they are beginning to rise rapidly, is the best way to explain it, because we can see that just over these past several days, it has risen from just about $84 a barrel to all the way to $100 a barrel, meaning that it's risen nearly about $16 in price in just the past several days. Not really a good thing, and especially if the trend continues, we may see that we start to enter another gas and oil crisis here in the West, where the price could start to far out exceed the spending capabilities of citizens here in the United States and the Western world, and we could also start to see that the threat of an oil shortage could start to return once more. A lot of people are talking about the situation at the moment, and while the U.S. has stated that the Strait of Hormuz is open and it's flowing like nothing ever before seen, and also while the U.S. is saying that everything's fine and everything's amazing, it doesn't really appear that this time around the oil market's generally buying that and trading the futures based off of those positive statements. Regardless of the positive statements, the price is now beginning to rise quite heavily. And Matthew, what are people thinking about this situation, and what are you thinking about it as well?
Okay, so it looks like investors are not really taking CENTCOM statements at face value anymore, because CENTCOM's been doing these so-called fact checks on Twitter, where they'll put out a post saying that Iran's claiming that they have control of the Strait of Hormuz, and then they'll say that's false, CENTCOM has control of it, despite the traffic in the strait being dramatically reduced to considered to pre-war status. So I would say to most reasonable people looking at the data, the strait is clearly not open, and CENTCOM is clearly still going to war because they're trying to regain control of the strait. Which is, if we have control of the strait, then what the hell are we doing there at this point? So that doesn't make any sense even logically. So the oil prices are now skyrocketing because people are getting concerned that the war is starting to drag on, get more severe, and also escalate, and they're not believing CENTCOM anymore. So what are your thoughts? 60% said oil prices will reach crisis levels probably soon or in the coming months, while 24% said the oil prices will not rise too badly, and 8% said they're actually stabilized right now. And I would say they're not stabilized right now. Definitely not. They're definitely rising. That's clear from the charts that we're looking at right now. And unfortunately, I don't see this thing calming back down anytime soon, because we had heard that allegedly the U.S. had sent a ceasefire offer literally less than 24 hours ago to Iran through the Iraqi prime minister. And allegedly, according to reports, it was rejected by the Iranians. So it sounds like they're both wanting to fight again. The U.S. wants to fight, Iran wants to fight, and everybody's pretty much locked and loaded and ready to go at this point. So unless the war suddenly comes to a brief halt or a quick halt, then I suspect the oil prices will keep on rising, and we're probably on the same trajectory that we're on before the ceasefire, the first one, went into effect, would be my guess. So I'm not sure if that trick about the talks going well is going to work this time. That's one last trick in the bag that the president has at his disposal. He could say on Sunday, when the markets are about to reopen on Monday, he could say, oh, look, the talks are going well, Iran's begging for a deal, and the war's about to come to an end in a few days or something like that. He could say that, and maybe that might calm the markets a little bit. That trick seemed to work the last time, but I'm not sure if people have wised up to that or not. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say it really depends on how this war is fought. Right now, we've been focusing primarily on trying to degrade the Iranians' anti-naval and anti-ship capabilities, generally, in the Strait of Hormuz and along the Iranian coastline. However, tonight, we're starting to see that the strike ferocity is beginning to spread deeper into the country against targets that may not be involved in anti-maritime or anti-ship activities on the coastline. And this could start to be a concerning sort of a trend. We may see that the President of the United States may be, at least according to insider reports from U.S. officials who have spoken to the press, advocating for a broader strike campaign that doesn't focalize our attacks against the coast and degrade their abilities there, but once again goes back to the first phase of the war of just bombing Tehran every night and also every major city in Iran, and hoping that that will eventually do something, or that the headlines will be cool enough that the war will eventually end. And I hate to tell y'all, this isn't really the movies. The headlines being cool doesn't actually end the war. Ending the war ends the war, to put that in a bit of a common sense sort of an approach. And so if that starts to become a reoccurring trend and we see that we start focusing far less on the Iranian naval capabilities and we just start bombing them in general, we could see that the second phase of the war creates another oil crisis, or where the prices reach crisis levels, extreme amounts, at least in terms of the cost of the pump and also the cost for national logistics to be able to run here in the United States of America and also in our allied nations around the world. I also have to point out that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve doesn't generally lie in this situation, and over the past two administrations, I gotta say, folks, it's really something amazing here. Over the last two administrations, we've seen that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve has basically been robbed blind in terms of the amount of oil that it's had in it. And while it did remain stable throughout pretty much decades, and also saw that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve actually had a growth in the early 2000s, the last administration absolutely dunked on it and dropped it down to the lowest value that had been seen since the 80s. And the current administration, because of the Strait of Hormuz blockade, is also seeing that it's now being emptied out at an even faster rate than what we saw at the beginning of the war in Ukraine. So generally, I would say that considering that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, as of its last week of reporting, has reported another 8,500 barrels lost from the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, that is showing us that right now, while the situation isn't as bad as it was in the first phase of the war, there is not the equilibrium that we're looking for in the global oil logistics to see that the situation is truly okay. If the Strait of Hormuz was open, we would probably see that the Strategic Petroleum Reserve would largely stabilize, because right now, the U.S. is trying to cover the deficit here in this country from the oil being loaded up onto ships heading to Europe and the oil being consumed at home by just draining out the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to be able to try and get the oil out there into the open market for people to be able to use as gas or diesel. And considering that we're seeing that it's still being emptied out, that's giving us a pretty good idea, at least at this point, that the U.S. is still trying to cover the difference, which is showing us that the Strait of Hormuz is not open. If it was and traffic was flowing freely, the value would stabilize. It would not continue to empty like we're seeing week over week. So I hope that addresses that.
And also, by the way, he meant to say drain, not rob, by the way. Like, I don't know if the word rob is the appropriate term for the thing here. They're draining the reserve, I would say, but they're not robbing the reserves personally or something like that.
Oh, no, they're not. I didn't mean it like that. It was a euphemism to describe how much has been drained out of it. It's like having a wallet, and, you go out into the street one day and you had $800 in it, and you come home and you only have 50. You would say, as a euphemism, I've been robbed. That doesn't mean that someone stuck you up with a knife, though, and robbed you legitimately. That's just a figure of speech, you see. But outside of that, though, it does appear that generally based off the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, it doesn't really look like the situation is still as positive as CENTCOM and the U.S. government is making it out to be, and the Strait of Hormuz is clearly still shut down, and on top of that, we're not really seeing any transits of vessels within the area. And to quickly look, we have the spoofed vessels, Jersey Devil 404, and also it appears that we have a actual crude oil tanker, the Noble, that is near to the area, but doesn't appear to be leaving. It actually appears to be trying to get close and then turn around and leave. So apparently they're trying to see if a passage would be possible. We can also see a couple of general cargo vessels are moving through and a bulk carrier, but generally it's the oil tankers that we're the most concerned about, and those oil tankers are not being allowed out. So that's a bit concerning. And if this continues and the U.S. does not, for some reason, reopen the Strait of Hormuz, it's going to create a pretty big problem. So with that, I hope that does address that the best we possibly can, at least in both of our opinions here. And with that, it is time for us to move on and into the rest of the news of the strikes that we got from the inside of the Islamic Republic of Iran, and also the Iranian counterattacks that we saw throughout the day, and additionally, all of the major breaking news that's been happening in Ukraine while we've been covering the situation in Iran. But I do have to say, before we move on into the rest of all this news, we are extremely grateful and appreciative of each and every single one of y'all being here over the course of this night. We can see right now that there's 21,500 people here, and at the peak, we had 22,000 people here live on air. And I gotta say that we're entirely honored and greatly appreciative to know that each and every single one of y'all have been here over the course of this night. I hope that y'all been enjoying our news coverage, and that's been factual accurate and well-resourced and searched as best as we could before we had to go on air as quickly as possible to cover the breaking news of the strikes that were happening simultaneously in Russia and Iran. We're about to be getting into the rest of our breaking news of the strikes that we have seen inside of Iran from the U.S. forces and also the Iranian strikes that have once again been conducted in northern Iraq, Kuwait, and Jordan throughout the day, and the possibility that Israel might enter the conflict in the next coming days, depending on how the situation continues to unfold. But before we move on into all of that, I do want to make sure to take a brief moment to get to chit-chat to a couple of y'all. And so we're going to be getting 3 questions from the chat before we get on into the rest of our news. And Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our first of the 3 super chats and jumping right back to our big breaking news of the night coming out of Ukraine and also Iran as well. Also, by the way, we are expecting apparently an Iranian response apparently on the Gulf states. Apparently that's coming soon according to what I'm seeing right now, so that could be happening at any moment. But jumping into our first super chat here, this one goes to Jack Ray. And thank you very much, Jack, for that $67 support, and we appreciate that very, very much. He said, Iran is trying to get the U.S. over a barrel, and the U.S. is trying to shaft Iran. Do you dig that?
And I gotta say, I think I do. I think I dig it. 6'7". But humongous thanks to your support, Jack Ray, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep this thing running. And I gotta say, honestly, I'm looking at that and I'm trying to figure out how to make a play on it. Honestly, it's such a perfect joke. I really can't make a play on it. There's nothing else to add. It basically says everything in itself right there. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that has addressed that incredibly well. And we thank folks like you for going out of your way to support this channel and help it to keep on running. It's folks like you who support this channel, something that no viewer has to do, yet many do nonetheless, that help us to be able to keep this thing on air, pay our bills, and keep this news running every single day. And I gotta say that we're massively appreciative of folks like you, Jack Ray, and everyone else who goes out of their way to support this channel, because you not only make it possible for us to be on air every single day covering this news, but you also make it possible for the millions of people to come here every single month and listen to the news from this channel, because we're able to keep rolling. And so humongous thanks to you once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I cannot confirm that there's been strikes in Kuwait yet. I am monitoring for the Gulf state attacks to begin anytime soon. I'm seeing some people say that they might have started, but I don't see any evidence of that, at least right now. It could be announced here very shortly, but the Kuwaitis have not put out an announcement yet about being attacked, and I haven't seen any eyewitness reports either saying that. So if it's going to happen, it hasn't been reported yet. But moving into our next super chat here, this one's going to go to none other than Marion Deemert. And thank you very much, Marion, for the $50 support, and we do appreciate that very much as well. And Marion said, "Go Ukraine."
And go Ukraine. And I gotta say, we're about to be getting into that news here in a minute. And that news is absolutely crazy today. I mean, it is unbelievable what's been going on in Ukraine today, folks. The Ukrainians have just been laying down the heat. I mean, like, about as badly as the U.S. is currently laying down the heat right now in Iran, Ukraine's been doing the same to Russia. And so we're about to be getting into that here really soon once we wrap up the Middle East news segment. And I gotta thank you incredibly for the support, Marion Deemert, and helping this channel to keep running, because it's folks like you who help to make this thing possible, make it a reality, and keep the dream alive. And we thank you greatly for that, incredibly for that, as a matter of fact. And so humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to get the last question of this segment, and then we're going to be moving on to the rest of the news from the Middle East and also Ukraine. So what do we got?
All right, so this one's going to go to Punisher of the North, and it puts in a $20 support, and thank you very much, good sir, as well, for supporting the channel. He said, "Good evening, Enforcers. Enforcer Daniel asked me earlier when we were watching TV, and he had seen Iran's cardboard leader, and asked why he looked like that. I said, let's ask the Enforcers, and they'll tell you, LOL, and LOT, LSA.
Well, that's a good question, Enforcer Daniel, right there. That's a good question. I'd say... generally, lately, Mujtaba, he's been a little bit under the weather. He's feeling about as bad as a board. Cardboard, specifically. The reason why he looks like that is because Mujtaba isn't really around in the public. He's kind of hiding, and they want to make it look like he's out and about, like where people can see him. So they make a cardboard cutout of him, and they bring that around instead. So that's kind of the short and simple answer. Why in the world does he look like that? he's scared to come out into the public, so they use a cardboard cutout of him instead. But a huge thanks to you so much for the support, Punisher of the North, and helping this channel to keep running, and a big hello to you and Enforcer Daniel, and a huge thanks to both of y'all for enjoying this channel and supporting it to help it to keep on running so that we can keep this news rolling and answer great questions like that. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. Long live the Lee Spring Army. The Lee Spring Army will never truly die. And with that, we are on and into the rest of our news for the night. And moving us right back into the Middle East and the Islamic Republic of Iran, we were able to hear of further strikes that were conducted inside the country that were not in the Khuzestan province, Bandar Abbas, or the area of Konarak and Chabahar. Before we get on into that, though, we were able to hear that apparently a main source of contention between some U.S. officials is that there may not be enough high-end munitions or high-caliber munitions to be able to use against the Islamic Republic of Iran, and the rapid pace at which they're being consumed versus the rate that they're being produced apparently has become some point of concern in the current administration, according to sources who spoke to CBS News today and reported this in an article that was made about the situation. We were able to hear at the first part of the war that there did appear to be a major issue with consuming high-end munitions in major strikes against Iran, and that we were nowhere close to being able to replace them or keeping the logistics at replacement rate, and we were largely expending munitions that we were not able to produce at the same number at that point. We were able to see that between then, during the first phase of the war and the second phase of the war, the U.S. government has been working heavily to try and find where in the world those munitions can be sourced from. And we have been able to see that during that ceasefire period, there were significant efforts to try and ramp up domestic munitions production here within the United States of America. And also as a result of that, we saw the United States started to fling out licensing rights to produce American weaponry and American missiles and munitions to basically any country in the world that wanted it at that point, because the U.S. wouldn't be able to keep up with their purchase orders and ours at the same time. Because of this, a lot of people are wondering whether or not this continuing statement that's coming out that the rate of munitions consumption does not meet the rate of replacement is of serious concern or not. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so this is becoming a little bit more concerning now, because now that we're seeing that the ceasefire came to an end, the first ceasefire that was between the U.S. and Iran, now we're seeing the war get started again and also ramp back up quite significantly. And today, we've seen the start of a brand new U.S. Air Force air bridge between Europe and the Middle East, which means that nonstop supplies are flowing into the region yet again since the ceasefire went out of effect. That's a lot of munitions heading into the region, including interceptors for Patriots and all kinds of other ones as well. So now that we're hearing that apparently they're kind of low and don't have enough advanced munitions to sustain a long-term war on Iran. What are your thoughts about that? And it looks like people are pretty much split on this one. 40% said it's fear-mongering. I'm not very concerned about it. While another 40% said the U.S. can adapt and they must do so right now. And 13% said it's time to pack up and go home. And honestly, this might be the best wake-up call that the U.S. ever needed in our entire U.S. history at this point, because we are coming around to a point where the world is fracturing into two different hemispheres. We have China and Russia over there on their own with all their cronies teaming up together, and then we have Europe and the United States and all of us here in the West teaming up against those bad forces against the United States. So, I mean, if we can't even handle a war on Iran and we're already running out of advanced munitions, that's not a good sign. And before we ever get into a tangle with China, if we can't handle Iran, we're in foul shape. So I would say, I'm with the 40%. The U.S. can completely adapt to this, and it's imperative that they use this war in Iran to iron out the kinks before we go into a war with China or Russia, or NATO gets involved in a war like that, and then we got caught lacking big time, and then we're in a fight for our complete survival at that point. So I would say it's a time for the America knock the door down mentality to come back. They need to either reduce the red tape to sell or produce more weapons and develop them faster, or do something to figure it out, because the U.S. can get this done. We have the biggest military budget on the planet. We have the brightest minds on the planet. If we can't figure this out, then we got bigger problems in this war. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that to answer this question, I have to tell y'all a story. It's a little story, but it's an important story here. Matthew, do you know about the 100 Years' War, the war that lasted, I think, a little over 100 years between England and France, way back in the day in the Middle Ages?
A little bit.
Okay, so to give you all a little bit of background, Britain, well, more so England at the time, and France went to war because England held territory within France, and there was a dispute over who controlled certain titles and whatnot between the French king and the English king, and Edward III decided to go to war with France as a result. So, before the war started, King Edward had some of his men sent out, appraisers as they were called, to go through the entirety of the English kingdom and find out how many arrows they had. And they found out that they didn't have quite a lot of them. They found out that if they went to war with France, with the amount of arrows that they had at that time, they would expend almost all of them within weeks. And so King Edward decided that that was a bit of a problem, because you can't really fight a war that for weeks, when it's clearly going to be going on for a couple of years, as all wars do. And so King Edward created a brand new government position. It was literally called Keeper of the King's Arrows. And this man's entire job, who was appointed in this position, was to go around the entirety of the kingdom and get every single Fletcher to produce a humongous amount of arrows for the English longbowmen, so that way when they went to war, they would have about an entire year's supply in stock, ready to go once they went to war with France. And so they gave it a couple of years to be able to build up enough arrows, and they finally had enough arrows stored up for an entire year's worth of fighting, at least from their expectations, and then they finally went to war with France. And it was by that preparation that they had the production capacity to keep up the arrow production throughout the entirety of the 100 Years' War, which of course went on for a little over 100 years, and not only that, they had enough arrows to start off the war. The US and a lot of countries these days, including Russia, enter wars with the concept that there is absolutely no preparation whatsoever, or what we would call a pre-mobilization of war industry to an extent in the industrialized age, of making sure that we have the munitions production capacity in place before a war starts to be able to sustain the conflict and keep it going without running out of munitions. In the United States, in the past decade, munitions production has been at an extremely low rate. Before the war in Ukraine, there was practically hardly none of any munitions types being produced at any significant level in the United States. If we get into a war, the munitions that we have is all that we have, in a larger sense, and it would take months, if not longer than a year, to be able to get our sorts of war industries up to speed and up to production rates that will be able to keep up with the demand or the usage of our munitions. And that's the problem that we're in right now. We clearly know that because they had to put in a purchase order for GBU-57 MOPS after we used the couple that we had on Midnight Hammer, and also we saw that they had to start rapidly ramping up defense production capacity here in the United States after the first phase of the war. And that's something that we need as an important wake-up call. And because of that, I'd actually be within the group that said that the U.S. can adapt, and it has to right now, because we are in a very dangerous time. Much like King Edward III had to prepare for the war with France, we have to be ready for a war with Iran, which we are currently fighting right now, China, which could happen in a couple of years, and Russia, which may happen imminently within less than a year. We need the munitions and the firepower capacity to be able to match all of these foes and possibly defeat them with superior firepower in that alone. And that requires our war industries to be ramped up to extreme volumes of production and capacity to be able to keep up with, stockpile, and sustain major military actions if they have to be undertaken. And so I would say...
More than that, though, I mean, the U.S. doesn't need to just spend a whole bunch of money and stock up these old style traditional munitions. They need to start adapting to the new form of warfare, which it seems like they're having an extremely hard time doing that, a very hard time trying to adapt to drone warfare and all these different technologies. And I'm not sure if that's because they're beholden to the defense industry, which generally doesn't really want to adapt to stuff like that because they prefer to sell more expensive missiles. I'm not sure if that's the reason, but it's really remarkable that we spend so much money on the military and we can't make a simple a simple transition over to producing the what's it called, the Lucas drone. That's the Shahid variant that the U.S. produces. It's why aren't we producing tons of those? We're still barely using them. They're not being used very heavily, and they're still relying on these old technologies. For example, shooting a Patriot at a $30,000 drone. It's we haven't been able to adapt to that yet. We've had 4 years of watching Ukraine adapt to it, but we can't. I don't understand why that is.
It's generally the defense industry and how it exists. It doesn't really stand to innovate. It stands as a profit-making business, and we don't really allow the competitiveness needed to make sure that it remains a competitive industry. I mean, you and I both know that because we've looked into what it takes to even get a new company stood up in the defense industry, which is insanely laborious and expensive in its own right, just to become a company in that sphere and to create any competition. And then even still, you have to play the the politics game of being picked for the acquisition contracts and whatnot by the military to even be able to see that your company gets off the ground and doesn't implode immediately afterwards, which you're going to get destroyed by the larger companies that are already there. And we need to remove those kinds of restrictions on a lot of the red tape to make the defense industries far more competitive and to allow for the innovation that's needed to see that prices come down naturally, and also that Army research and acquisitions, or really military research and acquisitions, are able to pick, without having any real political affiliations, the right weapon system at the right cost in the right number for that kind of a job. That's what we need to see. That's the real innovation that would allow for the rapid sorts of growth that we've seen in Ukraine, where they went from having nary a single military industry to being probably one of the largest arms producers currently on the planet that we see right now. And most of that is in inexpensive drones that are some of the most effective weapon systems on the planet that we're seeing at the moment. So I would say that's largely where we need to start heading at this point, and we need to head there fast. I would suggest that anyone who's listening right now in the Congress needs to get an act on the floor right now, and it doesn't matter whether you have any lobbies or anyone that's supporting you in the defense industries. That doesn't even matter. This is a matter of national survival. There needs to be an act passed to start removing a great deal of the red tape that exists within the war industries to see that new competitors can enter and that prices and also volumes of weapons produced can be far greater in numbers. So I hope that does address that the best I can, at least in my opinion. Strikes within this area and within the areas of Tehran, we were able to see that air defenses were activated. We did show the footage of that earlier due to reports of blasts that were happening within northeastern Tehran, near to the Lavazan area, which is usually where government officials live within the city. Outside of that, the Iranian government has been quite mouthy today and has stated that they will be not conducting any further ceasefires so that way the United States, in their words, can replenish oil and ammunition reserves and then resume attacks. We also were able to hear that apparently ballistic missile launchers were on display inside of Tehran tonight, which we were able to see at some sort of a pro-government rally or function here in this clip.
What kind of flags are those they got flying over there?
The Nationalist Socialist Islamic Action Party. I don't know. I mean, they look really bad, though. I mean, they look a lot like something else from Germany in the 1930s.
Yeah, it kind of does. And also, it's like, why are they showing this launcher? It's like, what's the point?
I don't even know. Honestly, it's a whole mystery. Like, I don't even have a clue, man. Maybe that's the red flag of revenge over there, and they got like a whole load of them up around here. I guess. I don't know, but it's weird. But also, we were able to hear that the Iranians have threatened the British. They threatened the British. The Iranians have warned of consequences if Britain lets the U.S. military use its bases, naming RAF Fairford specifically, where a B-1 bomber reportedly launched a strike on Iran this week. The UK Defense Ministry stated, "Our armed forces are ready to protect the security of the UK from any form of attack, whether on our soil or beyond, and the UK is ready to defend itself 24/7. Good response by the UK Ministry of Defense. They ain't backing down, and now the Iranians have a choice. They can try and attack the British. There's an outpost near to Iran. It's RAF Akrotiri and Dkilia, inside of Cyprus. They could try and attack the British at Cyprus, and according to that response, there is a possibility that the new Prime Minister and his cabinet may decide to join military actions against the Islamic Republic of Iran in support of the United States if the Iranians do try to attack any British holdings, assets, or territory anywhere within Iran's reach. The mainland of the United Kingdom is currently out of reach, to make that clear for everybody. Currently, the farthest range Iranian intermediate ballistic missile can only reach to about Prague, I believe, or somewhere getting closer to Dresden. It cannot reach the UK. So for our British viewers, you are not under a threat of an Iranian IRBM attack. It's more so the British outposts inside of the Eastern Mediterranean that will be under a threat of attack, or the RAF air wings and squadrons that are currently based out of other allied British nations within the region, including the Kingdom of Jordan and elsewhere. So a lot of people are currently talking about this threat that the Iranians made to the British. And I also have to make it clear that they threatened the Bulgarians similarly about allowing U.S. forces to base inside of Bulgaria, which the Bulgarians completely ignored, and then they approved U.S. forces being stationed and operated inside of Bulgarian territory. So far, Iran has been starting to throw around a lot of threats to European countries about trying to support the United States of America, and it doesn't really look like any of them are listening, and they're making it pretty clear they'll probably knock their teeth out if they try anything to follow through with the threats that the Iranians are currently making. And so, Matthew, what are people thinking about this right now? Are they thinking that Iran is just trying to to intimidate the Europeans, or are they thinking that the Iranians might actually attack a European or a NATO country at some point here in the future? And what are you thinking as well?
It looks like 68% of the audience said Iran simply trying to intimidate Europe and Britain, while 24% said Iran will actually end up attacking Europe at some point, and 3% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And really, I don't know if Iran's going to take that step of attacking Europe, anybody in Europe, like, for example, Britain or even Germany or anybody like that, because they would be dragging in NATO. If NATO had the balls to respond to it, which honestly, I'm not totally convinced that they would, actually. They might not even do anything about it. They might just be like, oh, Iran's just blowing off some steam, don't worry about it. And then a missile gets lobbed at Britain or something like that. I would say Iran probably has no reason to really attack Europe. Like, they're threatening stuff, but they threaten everybody, though. I mean, that's a daily occurrence inside of Iran. They come out and yap and yap and yap and say something. Somebody's going to get something someday. It's like, that's the status quo for Iran. So I'm with the 68%. I think they're intimidating Europe. They're trying to see if they can get away with trying to scare them away. And it sounds like they didn't, at least for now. And I don't think Iran's really going to go that far. They don't want Article 5 to be enacted and then have the entire European alliance have a justification for getting involved in the war against Iran at that point. So I think they're just yapping. That's my guess. But Enforcer, what say you?
I'd actually say I think they're going to end up attacking Europe at some point, because I think we're all forgetting here, everyone. They did attack Turkey in the first phase of the war. It's just that nobody really remembers that because none of the missiles hit Turkey, but they were shot down in Turkish airspace, and they were attempting to attack air bases inside of Turkey. So I would actually say there is a possibility they may end up trying to attack a NATO state. But I would also say, folks, that I think that if they did try to attack a NATO state, they'd probably end up shooting down the missiles from a NATO air defense force, and then they probably just put out a strongly worded letter going, hey, don't do that again, because that's basically all that Turkey did. And to remind you all, the airbase around the area of, let's see here, where in the world was it? I think it was the Incirlik Air Base came under attack multiple times by the Islamic Republic of Iran at the later end of the first phase of the war. And we were able to see that the Turkish air defense forces had to actively shoot down these missiles while they were in Turkish airspace, and the debris did land inside of the Republic of Turkey. And so, given the fact that Turkey is a NATO state, and that they didn't really respond, and that they didn't invoke Article 5, and that they also said in a strongly worded letter, don't do that again, or else there's going to be a problem, and then Iran did it again, and then they just repeated the whole cycle again, I would say that's not out of the question that the Iranians might try to launch an attack against a country like Bulgaria, or possibly the British outposts in let's see, Akrotiri and Dhekelia, to make sure to get the name properly here, on the island of Cyprus, because they also did conduct attacks against the British in that regard, although I do have to say Starmer was Prime Minister during that time, and the British did nothing. Starmer is no longer the Prime Minister, so I'm not really sure what the approach of the current Prime Minister would be in the UK if Akrotiri and Dhekelia did come under attack and was hit again, but we'll have to see. So that would largely be my 2 cents on it. But Matthew, I see that apparently you do not agree with that much in the chat. Would you like to tell us more?
Yeah, I would say personally, Turkey is like, I mean, Turkey's not really Europe. I mean, they're a lot closer. They're in the region and things like that. Yes, they're in NATO, but they're kind of like involved in this mess because they're in the region. If Iran goes as far as to launch a missile over toward, like, for example, Germany, France, UK, or somebody like that, in my mind, that's a lot different. I know they're all in NATO, but it's still a lot different because they're going like into Central Europe at that point. That's a lot more of a serious step to take. And not to mention, like you just said, the technical limitations that Iran really doesn't have missiles that can reach all the way to Britain. If they do, I mean, they probably get shot down if they even shoot it over there. So I just don't think so, because if they did something that extreme, I think that probably NATO might step in. There's a 50-50 chance that they might, and I don't think Iran wants to take that risk.
But wouldn't you say that they could conduct an attack against U.S. forces in Bulgaria or the British forces at Akrotiri and Dhekelia?
I mean, they could. I mean, they've launched strikes or drones into Turkey before, but I think most of them got shot down on that. And that's still really Turkey. I'm talking about like Central Europe, like the big ones, the big like 5 in NATO, like, Germany, UK, France, people like that. That's the ones I'm talking about.
But when like I don't know, I'm going to drop that voice, but well, I mean, they really can't hit any of those, though. They don't really have the range. They can hit Prague, and they can hit everyone else in the Balkans, but they can't really hit anything. Well, they can hit Italy. Like they could hit Vicenza here in Northern Italy.
Why? I mean, really, why would they do that, though? I mean, if the UK is letting the US, let some bombers take off from their runway or something, it's like Iran launching a missile at the UK is not going to fix that. All it's going to do is to make a huge risk for Iran at that point and possibly get NATO involved in the war and come down hard on Iran's head at that point. So it's not going to solve Iran's problem. It's just going to create more, which, I'm not saying Iran uses logic all the time. Like, they could do something stupid just out of pure emotion, but that would be a pretty stupid step to take, considering there's hardly any upside to that at all.
Well, it would be a pretty stupid one to take, but I mean, the Iranians are not that shy of taking stupid actions, like they do that quite often. So I'd say there is a chance, because the fact that they attacked Turkey, which was pretty risky, and regardless whether, like, your opinion is they're a European country or not, they are a NATO state, subject to Article 5 protections, and yet the Iranians still did attack them, and the Turks were successful in shooting it down. I think that generally leads credence that they're willing to take that kind of a risk with any NATO state.
Are you sure that Turkey's NATO? Because I thought they were OTAN.
Matthew, that's the same thing.
But my point is this. Turkey is NATO, but are they really NATO? I mean, technically on paper they're NATO, but they also like to flip-flop a lot. They like to jump around a little bit. They like to ride both sides of the fence. One day they're falling on the left side, the Russian side of the fence, and the other day they're falling on the actual NATO side of the fence. Just some personal frustrations with Turkey. They do Turkey things. They flip-flop. But they are technically in NATO. I guess we can give them that, or OTAN, depending on how you read it.
Well, I don't really think, Matthew, now that they've attacked Turkey, that they're going to just, cold turkey on attacks against NATO, I think they're going to be seeing if everyone up there is turkey or chicken.
Yeah, I think so. I also see some people saying, it's Turkey. I mean, it's Turkey. I know it is Turkey, okay? I still call it X Twitter. I still call it that because it's been ingrained in my head. They spend a lot of money, like, calling it Turkey. They spend a lot of money calling it Twitter. That's what I just call it. It's just simplicity's sake. Turkey. Who the hell's calling it Turkey?
Also, on top of that, they finally changed it from Twitter to X.com. Oh, well. It used to be Twitter.com up until very recently, even with it being called X. But outside of that, though, I would say, folks, I might end up being proven wrong, but I just have a feeling because of the whole Turkey Incirlik attacks in the last phase of the war, there's a possible likelihood they could do that again here in the present day. Might be an unpopular opinion, but it's my opinion. I'm going to stick by it. So moving us on out of that bit of news, we've also been able to hear outside of the Islamic Republic of Iran that they did conduct strikes against U.S. forces in Kuwait, and we also were able to hear of heavy U.S. Air Force activity near to Kirkuk in northern Iraq. But moving us on down into Kuwait, we were able to hear that Kuwaiti air sirens did sound today because the Iranians were conducting another attack. The statement was largely cookie cutter one is normal. It appears that the Iranians did hit a power plant within southern Kuwait. And turning this down, we see the fire right there.
What is this vehicle this guy's riding in?
It's I don't know. I have no clue.
Maybe it's one of those mini buses or something. It's strange looking.
Oh my god! Did he have like?
Oh my god! Oh man, really though. I mean, it was pretty shocking.
Is that a Pepsi that's clear, or is that just water in a Pepsi bottle?
It's definitely water in a Pepsi bottle.
Huh. Honestly, that's real. But moving us on from that, this isn't Israel. I need to say that the Kingdom of Kuwait's probably going to demand an official apology for us saying, well, that's real. Like, it's real. Because you're going to be, well, not Israel. But moving us on from that, it's time for us to get to Ali al-Salim. We were also able to see that reports did state, at least from Tasnim News, that they conducted a drone attack on Ali al-Salim. And I hate to tell y'all, folks, the damage is really starting to rack up on Ali al-Salim. This is a before, well, actually, this is the before picture of a large area of Ali al-Salim. I'll show you exactly where that is here at the airbase. So, let me... they blurred it all out. Oh, I wish I could find it for y'all. Well, anyways, here's the picture of from July the 18th. Here's the picture from the 23rd. And you can see that a large amount of buildings appear to have been burned out. So it looks like the Iranians have been landing some pretty decent hits on the Ali al-Salim airbase. We haven't heard of any fatalities here, but I would assume that there's most likely wounded as a result of the extent of the damage from these strikes from the prior Iranian attacks that have been conducted throughout the days. So we are seeing that Ali al-Salim is one of the more heavier hit targets at this point in the whole of the Middle East. Additionally, we are also able to hear that apparently another Iranian ballistic missile slammed down near to the Mufaq Salti airbase and caused a mushroom cloud after the strike, which triggered some sort of an explosion, according to the New York Post. They wrote that quite succinctly. But it does appear that some sort of Iranian missile has once again landed near to the base and exploded. In the meantime, U.S. airlifts are continuing at an increased rate, and we were able to see a video today showing from Flight Radar just the raw number of flights going in and out of the Middle East at this point via UCOM. Quite a large number.
That's a lot. And it looks like most of them are heading to Israel, it looks like.
Well, that's where they're going before they turn their transponders off.
Yeah, it looks like they're bringing a whole lot of stuff to Israel. Could it be because the military has merged now that they're technically Israeli aircraft?
That's a good one. Oh, man. Oh, man. But outside
Man, you thought I was joking.
Man, well, I mean, in a sense. But we also were able to hear that the Israelis are apparently preparing for a possible escalation. Netanyahu is convening the restricted security cabinet this Friday about this very topic, apparently. So we might be seeing that reluctantly, of course we all know reluctantly, the Israelis might have to unfortunately go to war with someone. Very sad, I know. And so unfortunately, that little prosecution is going to have to get put on hold again because there's a lunch, the wind blew the wrong way, smoke rose over the town, there was white smoke, a new pope got elected, something, so unfortunately it sounds like they might have to get involved in this conflict. We'll have to see how that goes. But with that, that's all of the news that we finally had from the Middle East over this day. And it's now time for us to move on and into all of the rest of the news that we have from around the world, which also includes the news out of Ukraine. But before we get to that, we have a brief little bit of news here from the good old US of A. We were able to hear that the Senate has now blocked the resolution to limit the president's war powers against Iran, largely giving him the laissez-faire ability to do whatever he wants at this point. And we've also been able to hear that U.S. bond yields are unfortunately rising at great rates. This is actually the highest yields. It's even higher than the Liberation Day high in April of 2025, which was set to drive interest rates to new 52-week highs. And the bond market, according to the Kobisi letter, is flashing red. So a little bit concerning to see. But moving us on out of all of that, we have new footage, which is coming out of St. Petersburg, which we're actually about to get to right now. But Matthew, what do we got out of there?
Okay, so we have a lot of new footage here, apparently showing all these different hits in St. Petersburg. They're alleging that another Wildberries logistics center was allegedly hit in St. Petersburg, and we got a wide angle showing how large that fire truly is at the very top of our list here on the Twitter page. And then we have a couple of more videos of it as well, but you can show this one first, but there's a much better video at the very top.
Let's take a look, everyone. Oh, there was another hit right there. Let's go to the second clip. Good morning, St. Petersburg. Good morning, hell. It's a wonderful day out here. The toxic fires from the Wildberries facility is already beginning. It's beautiful. And here's the clip that we just got very recently.
A very big one. Oh, secondary. I think it's becoming very clear at this point that Ukraine's goal is to try to bankrupt this company if they can try. I think at this point, it looks like they're sort of making some headway here with hitting these distribution hubs. I think they're on the fourth or maybe fifth one. I can't really keep track of how many it's been at this point, but it's definitely several.
Man, that company for the whole war, we're okay. And then one day Zelensky said, "You're catching a stray." Like just started hitting them left and right. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, they are literally blowing these things to pieces. And it's not only the St. Petersburg plant that's been hit or the distribution facility that's been hit. There's a lot of them that have been hit throughout the day once more. But to show you some of the clips we got earlier on, just to refresh everyone's memories, here is the clips of the strikes actually coming in earlier on air. There goes an FP1. A nice successful hit. Here's another picture of the fire that it was only starting in earnest. And not to give you a whiplash, but the Iranians just fired missiles. Dang. That's crazy. That's crazy right there. But moving on from that, we were able to just hear that the Iranians are now firing ballistic missiles targeting Jordan at this moment, which we just got footage of right now. So, not to give you a whiplash, but moving us right out of Russia, we literally just got there. We're going back to the Middle East because now they just decided right at the most convenient time while we're on air to start firing missiles. So, here's the clip. There it goes.
So right now, it appears to be that these missiles are being launched from the Tehran region. Also getting some reports, apparently, it appears to be they're all coming from the Tehran region right now. So that's where they're being launched from. We're currently seeing at least several missiles being launched. And it's being alleged by some sources they could be targeting Jordan, but that's not really clear at the moment. But we are seeing that the counterattack has begun, and I would expect that more missiles will be launched here probably very soon.
Hopefully we will see that is the case, at least
hopefully not, actually.
Well, sorry, I'm distracted. I'm trying to make sure to keep up with some stuff on the side here really quickly, but it does appear that there is a missile attack going, and hopefully we'll see that the U.S. can make a response to this or a successful defense to this here in the very near future. But moving us on out of that brief bit of news, which we will be trying to get you all updates on here in the moment, we've also been able to see more footage of the Wild Bears facility that had been attacked earlier, right when we were going live, and we were also able to see the drones entering St. Petersburg as well in this clip. Moving us on from that and on out of the area of St. Petersburg, we also were able to see that a strike was conducted in Tver from drones that were apparently flying overhead into the city in this area, which we were able to see in this clip. We hear the drone in the distance. We can already see some smoke rising from some target that's already been hit out there by several drones already. We hear the drone very faintly, and there's the hit. Oublie. And that's the end of that clip. We also were able to see the smoke rising over the city of Tver as the sun started to rise a little bit farther in the timeline, and we were able to see that there was a direct hit somewhere within the city area. We also saw that within the Moscow region today, there was a jet-powered drone warning that was issued, and also a cruise missile warning that was also issued for the Moscow city area, as it was stated by the Russian Federation that Ukraine was conducting a drone or a jet-powered drone attack and missile attack on the Russian Federation, possibly including Moscow. In the meantime, while that alert was coming out, someone also drove by the Electrostall Wildberries facility and let us see what was left of it, which there's nothing left.
Burned down to the rods or whatever that is, right? Oh, look, the cars are left there too.
Oh man, it was burned down to the rods. Like, honestly, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like, the destruction is absolute, though. That facility is completely gone. We also were able to hear that in some good news this morning, an Su-57 actually crashed right outside of Moscow near Lutsino just earlier today. And this is one of the very few Su-57s they have left. A couple of these have already been destroyed through the war from Ukrainian attacks, and it now looks like the Russians have lost another one on their own actions today. The pilot did successfully eject and apparently survived, but they did lose another Su-57. By the way, just to clarify this for everybody, the Su-57 isn't actually stealth. It just stylized to look stealth. It's not actually stealth. It has the same radar cross-section as an F-15. That's nowhere close to stealth. We also were able to hear that there were drone threats over an incredibly wide area today, including the Smolensk, Moscow, Pskov, Leningrad, Novgorod, Tver, Ivanovo, Vladimir, Yaroslavl, Vologda, and also several other oblasts that received missile threats. But before we move on into the rest of the news from Russia, I have to do whiplash again, as we have more reports of missile launches coming out of Iran. So what do we got here?
So we're hearing now that there's been a ballistic missile launch from the Isfahan province of Iran. So it appears to be it's going to be at least a medium-sized counterattack that Iran's conducting right now. Several launches from the Tehran region. Now we're hearing the Isfahan region also jumping into the situation. And we're also getting some more reports here that those ballistic missiles launched from Tehran were likely heading towards Jordan again, which is not good because, as y'all have seen over the last few days, unfortunately, we've suffered the U.S. casualties at the air base in Jordan. Apparently, at that air base there at Muwafaq is apparently where we suffered the U.S. Soldier casualties. So hopefully they've shored the place up or something, or they've gotten better protocols in place. It sounds like that's where some of the missiles are heading right now.
And hopefully we'll be able to see the U.S. air defense interceptors are successful tonight in shooting down and stopping these attacks from actually hitting the Muwafaq Salti Air Base or the King Faisal Air Base, which has also been attacked intermittently from recent Iranian attacks. But moving us on out of that further report of further missile attacks, we'll most likely be seeing impacts here in minutes. To try and round out our news from inside of the Russian Federation, we were able to see that the Ulyanovsk oil depot was attacked today and was on fire as a result of a Ukrainian drone attack that hit the facility last night, and we also were able to see a video of the up-close fire here on this film from later on today. Also muting that right there. I don't even know what that is, but we can see the oil fire right here.
That's a number one hit song in Russia.
I wonder. No, that's
don't
not.
play that too much there.
Hell no. No.
It's burning good.
Man, what the hell was that? A text-to-speech reader? It's burning good. So it's
me talking.
Well, moving us on out of that clip, we also were able to see outside of Ulyanovsk, then inside the Voronezh area, that the strike on the Wildberries facility here was also seen at an interesting angle today from the employees that saw the attack happen last night. We already covered this attack yesterday, but we were able to get some additional footage and videos of it today, and we were able to see that right here. But before we get to that, we have more breaking news coming out. So what do we got?
So right now we're getting some word that apparently there's explosions at U.S. bases in Kuwait right now. The warning sirens are sounding, and they're not saying which U.S. base it is. Now, of course, the usual target in Kuwait, I believe, is 5th Fleet headquarters, or is that Bahrain? Am I getting mixed up here?
Can you say that again?
5th Fleet headquarters, Bahrain or Kuwait?
That's Bahrain.
Okay, yeah, I thought I was getting confused there for me. I was thinking after I said that, I was like, wait a minute, that's Bahrain, actually. I'm getting them mixed up. Sorry, folks. The Gulf states, they're all becoming one these days, the way they're not responding. But I would say it sounds to me like some U.S. bases are under attack in Kuwait. Once again, the sirens are sounding, and that's being reported right now from a couple different sources. Also, we're hearing as well that there might be some interceptions that are taking place over at Jordan. I'm trying to see if I can get some pictures of that to see if maybe we can get that on camera here, but I'm not seeing any video of that. I am getting some more videos, though, of the missiles being launched from the Tehran region. I think this is a new video right here that's likely on the way to Jordan right now. Probably the Muwafaq Air Base would be my guess. So there's definitely an Iranian attack, a pretty large one taking place right now.
Now let's take a look at this footage of this new ballistic missile launch that we saw right here.
There's mouth noises in the back of this video here or something.
Man, it's beautiful, really. I mean, it was like fantastic, man. I was like, man, this is great. But right now we are hearing that the Ali Al Salim Air Base and Camp Burring in Kuwait are most likely under attack once more. We've also seen that a M142 HIMARS firing location around Abdali has also been hit a large number of times by Iranian ballistics within the prior few days, which could also be under attack once again at this moment. And we're also seeing that there's apparently a large number of ballistic missiles being fired towards the Muwafaq Salti Air Base or the King Faisal Air Base inside of Jordan. To show you all the two targets that may be hit inside of Jordan, this is the Muwafaq Salti Air Base right here inside the Kingdom of Jordan, and we also understand that further south near to Al Jafur is the King Faisal bin Abdul Aziz Air Base, which is also a air base that is being used by U.S. Air Forces and U.S. ground forces this time in the ongoing conflict against Iran. Either one of these could be targeted, and there's also a likely possibility that the city of Aqaba and the airfield just north of it, the King Hussein International airport may also possibly be used as targeted as well by the Iranian ballistic missiles that are coming in at the moment, as these are the three highly likely areas of attack that we've seen from prior Iranian attack patterns in the past few days. So we'll be seeing if we can get any further information out of any of the attacks or the attack vectors that may be ongoing right now, but it does appear clear that there is a large number of ballistic missiles that are currently flying out of the Islamic Republic of Iran and into the Kingdom of Jordan. And before we even get on into the rest of the Russian news, I'm actually just going to take a pause really quickly, folks, because the whiplash here is doing me some work. Like, I'm trying to get back into the Russian news, and then I have to immediately come back down here. So we're going to give it a minute and wait for this attack to end and make sure to report this accurately, and then we'll move back into Ukraine. So, Matthew, do we have any other updates that are coming out at this moment?
So right now, I'm not getting any more updates. It sounds to me like the missiles are currently in flight to their targets right now. It won't be long, though. We are now hearing, as of about 30 seconds ago, the sirens have just started in Amman, Jordan. So give the folks a quick look at the Amman area, and also let them know what bases are near that as well, just so people get a gist. Not that Jordan's a huge country or anything like that, but you can at least show the people where it has to be.
Well, we're hearing that sirens are sounding in Amman. There's no military targets around the city of Amman, but it is the Jordanian capital. So that's all I have to work off of. So that's the report.
So that's where we're hearing the sirens right now is in Jordan. So that does indicate that the reports earlier were accurate. Those missiles that were fired from Tehran, they are definitely heading toward Jordan right now. So that's very, very concerning to hear that, considering that they've been having some shortages with the air defense systems there, and that's why we saw some U.S. casualties just a few days back. Some very unfortunate casualties, to say the least. But in the meantime, I'm getting unconfirmed reports of explosions over Kuwait right now. Of course, Kuwait was under attack. We just heard about that a minute ago, and we're hearing some about that. I will say we will not get photo and video evidence of this probably for another 15 minutes or so. That's my guess. We will be getting more text updates about what's happening, but no footage for probably the next 15 minutes. That's usually how long it takes to get those updates. But right now, it's only Kuwait and it's Jordan that's under attack. We haven't heard the other Gulf states coming under attack. And also, Israel has still not been hit. Like I see some people saying, is Israel under attack? They're not as of right now. So obviously, Jordan's very close. We've seen some very close calls right on the Israeli border with Jordan, but so far Israel's not been directly attacked.
And so we will have to see if we get any further information or video or picture evidence out here in the next 15 minutes. And I see some people saying that someone's obviously providing Iran with real-time targeting information. In some cases, highly likely, yes, and I'm not doubting that. But if we're saying that air bases that are stationary targets have to have targeting data provided to them, my question would be, how stupid are the Iranians to need that? Because it's not really like an airbase is a moving target. An airbase is a stationary target. I mean, if you have a globe somewhere in Iran that has the grids on it, and you're able to calculate the coordinates from that, you can put in the coordinates, the GPS coordinates or the coordinates in general, to be able to target this airbase with relative ease. Stationary targets are not what targeting data is provided for. Targeting data is provided for mobile assets or mobile targets that change position from day to day, meaning that would be sensitive and operational security related. But saying, I want to drop a ballistic missile on a runway at Mufak Salti, it's not really like some country like China has to have like a super satellite or a super telescope to be able to find out where this runway is, or if there even is a runway there. We can see it on Google Maps and get the GPS coordinates that easy by right-clicking on the map. So I would say, if this attack is hitting stationary targets like Mufak Salti and King Faisal, or the area around Aqaba, highly likely that nobody's really given them anything that's incredibly, high-end data, because the last time they hit anything, it was the containerized housing units, and those are stationary targets in the airbase.
But for the targets that move around, aren't the Patriot launchers, those are able to be moved around, aren't they?
Yes.
Yeah, did we ever hear that they hit the moving targets, like the ones that can be shifted around? Did they hit any of those, or was that largely missed?
From what we know, it was most likely hit because First Lieutenant Fihan was some sort of an operator within that air defense missile battery that was at Mufak Salti. So we're assuming that one of them was hit at this point. So generally, yeah, that seems to be some of the sensitive data that's provided. But everyone's saying that every attack, and what I'm trying to clarify here is that some people are saying literally every attack is done because China's providing them info, and if China wasn't providing them info, they wouldn't be able to hit anything. And what I'm saying is that they can hit quite a lot of stationary targets because they don't move. So you can get the information or the coordinates from quite literally anywhere on, say, the containerized housing units, the runway, or the tarmac. But it's more so those high-end systems or mobile systems that are having the critical information provided to them. But right now, we understand that MUFAC Salty is under attack, and if it's a containerized housing unit attack, again, nobody really has to provide high-end data to the Iranians to help them to be able to conduct that attack. They can literally grab the GPS coordinates like we can off of Google, put that into a missile, and launch it right at the base. So, whether or not that's used in this attack right now, that's not a guarantee.
I would still say, though, the fact that Iran's gotten man pads from most likely Russia, possibly China too, depending on what systems they're currently using, but they've definitely gotten physical weapon support from both of those countries at some point in larger numbers, and that's been documented. Like we literally saw the Russian helicopters show up literally right before the war started. They were delivered to Iran, and then they were used on U.S. forces when the war got kicked off. So if they're providing physical assistance, I would bet money, not real money, but I'd bet some monopoly money that they have to be sharing real-time targeting information, like for moving targets and the mobile ones. They have to be sharing something. That would be my guess, and that's probably why the U.S. has gotten suspicion that Russia is helping out, because Iran does not have the capability for real-time satellite surveillance. I think they have like one janky Intel satellite they launched a long time ago, or was that North Korea?
I think the Iranians did launch one, but from what we know, it's probably like really low resolution. Or maybe the Chinese provided them some tech to put on it. It might actually be a decent satellite, but they only have the one.
Yeah, so they don't have a constellation of high resolution real time satellites. The ones we have here in the U.S., they aren't necessarily real time. They have to pass over the area at a certain time of day. It's not constant surveillance, but it's very consistent. It happens every single day at a fixed time, sometimes multiple times a day, depending on which ones they're using. So to me, it seems like they got to be giving them something. I say Diane Merriam saying China sold them a satellite. I think that was the report. It's just sort of ringing the bell now. I think China did provide at least some of the components in that one janky satellite that Iran launched up into space. They did that. But my point is, though, they don't have the capabilities of the West. We have the top tier, multi-billion-dollar huge constellations at our disposal. Iran doesn't have that. So if they're getting something like that, it has to be from Russia or China, one or the other.
Actually, we do have satellites that are in geosynchronous orbits to be able to gather information real time, and the Geosynchronous Space Situational Awareness Program, which is launched off a large number of satellites that are actually in a geosynchronous position and are able to photograph or generally almost show nearly a live feed of the situation happening on the ground without any breaks in real time, from what we understand.
Well, doesn't geosynchronous mean the satellites are stationary over one landmass, though?
Yes, but we have a load of them in orbit. It's an entire program of satellites that are in orbit. So we have satellites around the entirety of the world, giving us full coverage of the surface and whatever we need at whatever time we want.
What kind of field of vision are we talking about on these things? Are they able to photograph the entire continent or something? What are we talking about here? I'm not sure if you'd even know that either, because that's something that might be kept secret. Yeah, probably so, I'd imagine. But if the field of view is able to capture the entire country of Iran in high res, that would be highly impressive to say the least. I don't think us plebs in the public, though, are privy to that knowledge.
Well, you got to think, though, there's a lot of civilian satellites out there, like the Maxar satellites, that are able to literally photograph air bases with a high degree of fidelity and quite almost show the debris field laying on the ground when a target's been hit and knocked out. I would assume that those military satellites probably have the same capability, if not a little bit better fidelity, than a satellite like the Maxar satellite. And we have them around the world looking at everything at all times every day. A lot like the Firm, well, not the Firm satellite, but a lot like, what was that satellite system that you covered, Matthew, for the nuclear launches that pick up the heat signatures of missile launches and such things?
That's I know which one. It's the thermals, the thermal versions of the satellites or something of that nature. They're infrared.
It's not Firms, it's something else, but a lot like we have those to be able to pick up that. I think we have a program for nearly everything that's launched satellites into a geosynchronous orbit to be able to look at the entire world. Mm-hmm.
It's infrared. It's called SBIRS, the space-based infrared system. That's the one that they used to detect missile launches within 30 seconds.
Yeah, so I think we have a program generally for every type of thing. Even we have stuff for civilians, for civilian aspects as well that are in geosynchronous orbit. We can literally pick up, this is actually a cool fact, folks, we can actually pick up carbon dioxide emissions in real time around the world every single day and actually track their flow through the atmosphere via satellite in some cases, which I've seen NASA show before a couple of times, which is actually pretty wild to look at. And also that's observed by weather platforms on the ground. But for us to be able to observe it in other countries around the world and on a global scale, we use the satellites for that, which is very interesting sort of a thing. So I would say, generally, generally with the Iranian satellite, but getting back to the whole Iranian satellite thing and China providing them details or data, China's providing them details and data on systems that move, things that are there one day and not the next. But a stationary system, for example, the White House or the Capitol building or any other monument in the United States, like let's just pick one, like say Denver, Colorado. It's not like China has to tell Iran Denver, Colorado is in the middle of Colorado. Like the Iranians know that because it's a stationary thing, like the Capitol building or the White House or Muwafaq Salti to bring it back over in the CENTCOM. It's a stationary target. What the Chinese are giving data for are the moving targets. Like if a Patriot packs up and moves, China tells them, here's the satellite data showing the GPS coordinates of exactly where that Patriot system was 30 minutes ago. But it's that kind of data they're providing, but they're not providing literally everything because Iran can still conduct attacks whether China's providing them data or not. The data just allows for them to be able to hone in the attacks on mobile weapon systems, not the stationary targets.
Now, one thing that might hurt the geosynchronous theory that you have there is if it's true that we have a geosynchronous satellite that's able to photograph pretty much virtually any area inside of Iran, we don't have to wait for a schedule, then why is the U.S. expending Reaper drones and doing that type of surveillance, like, aerial surveillance? Because that's putting those platforms at risk, and that would be unnecessary if they were geosynchronous satellites in orbit.
I mean, I just showed you the geosynchronous satellites in orbit. I mean, that's like a program that's been around for about 12 years. It's not really
we don't know but we don't know what area they're photographing. Like, they might not be able to photograph most of Iran. It could just be like Tehran that they're photographing or something. We're just not sure. I think the fact that they're using aerial drones, like, for example, the Reaper and other more higher tech versions to get, like, real-time imagery, I think that suggests that they don't have a full, like, geosynchronous constant view of it.
Let's see here. Let me see here. Let me try and read really quickly. Let's see here. Trying to see if I can find. Let's see here.
Also, by the way, folks, if you're wondering, we're stalling because we're waiting on more news to come in, by the way. Right now, we're still waiting on the video and photo footage to come out of these attacks. It's still apparently en route.
Let me see. I'm trying to find some more information on these satellites because it looks like it's saying that there is a coverage globally from what I can see, but at the same time though, like that's like I don't really get what you're trying to say here because like the Reapers could just be used for real-time feed at a closer up point, or the Reapers could be used to laze up a target for a GBU to hit, which a satellite cannot do, or those satellites can't do. So that might be a reason why, but also on top of that, we have special forces teams that usually conduct reconnaissance on the ground, and then we could argue, why do they need a Reaper when the special forces team is doing the reconnaissance, and then why do they need a satellite when the special forces team and the Reaper are both doing reconnaissance? So clearly the Reaper and the satellite isn't working because the special forces team is there, and in Afghanistan it was very common to have all three of those systems working at the same time to observe a single target. So I don't really get like the point. I guess like you're maybe not factoring in they might have a redundancy, or maybe for some reason the satellite isn't able to see that well enough, so they bring in a Reaper, or they're bringing in the Reaper for a whole other reason. I wouldn't know why, but the satellites are able to observe the world generally in real time. That's why we're able to provide Ukraine with data on a literal daily basis of the Russians have these things here that you can blow up.
That's because the satellites rotate on a daily basis like normally. Like, they're not geosynchronous. They make a pass over that area, like pretty much every area around the world, once daily, at least once daily, depending on which satellite it is. So, I mean, that's why they give out daily briefings and stuff with resolution or with satellite imagery like that. But I don't know if they have geosynchronous coverage over everywhere in the world. I don't think they have a satellite constellation that big, unless it's something that we don't know about.
Well, I mean, don't we have a geosynchronous satellite array in orbit like you were covering on your video to pick up missile launches from around the world?
No, it's not geosynchronous. Those rotate around the Earth.
Well, that would seem to kind of be, again, kind of contrary to the point, because if they're there to pick up a nuclear attack from the Russians and they're down and out for a whole day, that means that for only about 20 minutes a day, the satellites watch the Russians possibly launch a nuke, and then for the other 23 and a half hours, the Russians can launch a nuke and we're basically blind to it from the satellites.
Yeah, who knows, really. But at the same time, though, getting back to the main point, though, I would say, generally speaking, I think China or Russia is giving real-time satellite information to the Iranians. That way they can hit mobile moving targets. That's my end conclusion of the whole thing.
Possibly, we'll have to see. I'll have to look into it a little bit more and see if I can get any more information on it. But do we have any other news coming out at this point?
So right now, nothing new out of Iran right now. It looks like, generally speaking, I guess the attack's underway. I really don't know right now. I mean, the sirens were going off inside of Jordan, so I'd assume that the attack is underway. We haven't heard any confirmed interceptions. We haven't heard any confirmed impacts on the ground either. So right now, it's a bit of a dead zone. Now, of course, we did just get the footage like 18 minutes ago of the missiles being launched, so it's still a very fresh situation. So I think at this point, we might move on to the Ukraine news at this point and then move back to this when more information comes out, because right now it looks like it's kind of stalled out.
All right, so moving us on out of the wait for the Middle East situation to turn into something, we are going to be moving on back up into the Russian Federation, as we have been able to see that within the Voronezh area today, another wild berries facility was also targeted, and we also can show you all the footage here that we were trying to get to a little while ago of the workers filming the attack that happened last night. So here's that clip. And we see the workers all outside, wandering around trying to figure out what to do, and there goes the drone. Moving us on from that clip, we also were able to see that the strikes on Voronezh were also quite significant tonight, not just last night, and we were able to see some additional clips of that right here, as smoke and fire was rising from one of the impacts, and we also were able to see another hit within the city on another target. And we also were able to see right here some of the damage that apparently was caused to an apartment building from one of the strikes. It doesn't appear to be a direct hit, however.
That was a house?
It looks to be, or at least where the drone went down in this case.
That's a rough house. It looks like a prison block.
Man, that thing looks like Broadmoor, like that psychiatric hospital in the UK, man. It's like, damn, it's like, that's rough. But moving us on out of that whole deal and out of the city of Voronezh, we also were able to see the drone attack vectors for the Ukrainian armed forces that were entering the Russian Federation overnight. And we were able to see the humongous flight of them flew into the central area of Russia around Moscow, and also an equal number of them flew down and into the Rostov-Don regions and also Crimea. Moving us on out of the reports from inside of the Russian Federation, moving us on into the occupied territories, we were also able to see that another wild berries facility was hit in Simferopol. Here's one of the explosions on the facility.
Oh, what the hell?
Man, I don't know what the
fireworks? Really? What the hell is coming out of this building, man?
I don't even know. Like, bro, that was wild looking, though. Man, like the 4th of July. We also were able to see the wild berries facility getting hit from this angle, and also burning from this angle. And we also were able to see in another clip the fire that was burning here at the facility. Very short clips. The electricity is in short supply here. We also were able to see broader attacks on the whole city of Simferopol, with the major fire being seen here, once again on the wild berries. And lastly, we were also able to see these clips as well, showing more of the attack on the wild berries facility. Here's the firework clip, but 3 seconds longer. It wasn't really like fireworks. I think they might have actually hit fireworks in the building or something. We can also see the little fire clip there. We can also see this one showing the wild berries facility burning to the ground. And lastly, a picture of the fire from several miles away. Moving us on out of Simferopol and on up into the area near to the Chandar Bridge, we also were able to see the Ukrainians targeting and hitting a Russian air defense team today. Take a little look. We see the Russians trying to make a run for it. And it doesn't really seem like they're doing a lot of active air defense, to be entirely frank with y'all. Not that I'm anything else but enforcer, but to be frank with y'all, hi, I'm Frank, it looks like they weren't really doing air defense well. Moving us on into Mariupol, we also were able to see more Russian supply lines getting hit overnight in the Mariupol area, and we see them trying to extinguish the flames of one of the burning trucks in the highway.
War in my eyes.
My eyes! Man, like, it's like, it burns!
And that's what happens when you have astigmatism. It's war in your eyes.
Man, that honestly sounds like a heavy metal band, War in My Eyes, or something like that.
Yeah, really, I tell you, my eyes at this point become very accustomed to war. Seeing this right here, this is the small time fry work right here for the Ukrainians.
I mean, look at it. They cooking them. Oh, and there was a couple of others that got burned down the street. They didn't show that in the first part of the clip, but now they do. We also were able to see near to the area of Ilovaisk, there were also multiple hits along the highway in this area. We're able to see one of them filmed by a Russian here. A truck just gently cooking on the side of the road. And we also are able to see, within the area directly of Ilovaisk, that logistics are cooking quite nicely on the highways. It's beautiful, блин.
Смотрим.
Че он стоит, объезжать надо, блядь.
Придурок, надо проскакивать.
Он что-то убирает с дороги.
Без дороги.
Блядь, смотри в оба.
Смотрим.
Это как раз сейчас...
Moving us on from that clip, we also were able to see outside of the Ilovaisk area and near to the Ukrainian front lines that today, well, actually, before we get into the location and notes, I actually want to bring you all to Kyiv really quickly to get into the Ukrainian governmental news, as we were able to hear that, as of today, executives from the U.S. defense manufacturer Raytheon actually met with Ukrainian leadership to kick off the process of domestic Ukrainian Patriot interceptor production. Why, that sounds quite nice. Looks like the Ukrainians are trying to fast-track the production of Patriots in any way, shape, or form that they can. Hopefully it'll work very quickly, and they'll be able to have some usable Patriots of their own stocks very soon. We also have been able to hear that according to the Ukrainian governmental statements today, it appears that they're saying that things are going to be getting tougher. According to Kuleba, who is the Ukrainian foreign minister, if I'm not mistaken, he stated that a total war is beginning and this is a big disaster. Very difficult times are ahead and there will be disruptions in the supply of food. Now the stage we are entering is very difficult. And this appears to be showing that the Ukrainian government has some sort of an inclination or an idea that a total war is around the corner with the Russian Federation and things might become exceedingly difficult for the state of Ukraine, even with how they've been dealing with it so far. They might become even worse because of how the war will progress. So, Matthew, what are people thinking about that right now, and what are you thinking about that as well?
Okay, so some Ukrainian officials, and also, by the way, Kuleba, he's the former official in Ukraine. He's no longer that fellow. He's now in retirement, or he's doing something else, I think. But the Ukrainian officials are worrying that the war with Russia is entering what they call a total war phase. And I think what they mean by that is that Ukraine's entering that, because Russia's been in that. Russia's been hitting civilian infrastructure for ages inside of Ukraine. So Russia's been exercising a total war, at least in my opinion. But Ukraine hasn't. But now Ukraine's hitting wildberries facilities, they're hitting power infrastructure and all this other stuff. So I think he's saying it's where Ukraine's entering that. That's the way I'm understanding it. So what happens now? And 64% said total war phase has arrived, while 16% said total war will not happen, and 12% said I'm 50-50 on this one. And I would say, in my opinion, it does seem like the total war phase is here, actually, because it seems like Ukraine's expanding beyond military targets, and they're moving on to hitting stuff that is arguably maybe dual use possibly, but sort of not really a military target. They seem to be moving on. I'm not sure if that's because maybe Ukraine's taking the gloves off and they're deciding to play on Russia's level. Whether or not that's a good idea or not, we'll get into that here in a minute. But I would say I think the total war phase has arrived. Also, the siege in Crimea, I would say that largely indicates a total war mindset as well. So I think both Russia and Ukraine are getting pretty fed up with the whole situation, and they're going all in. Both sides are at this point. So I'm with the 65%. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would say that I'm with the 65% as well. I would say that the total war phase has generally arrived, as both sides are really using whatever can be used at their disposal and whatever can be hit on the other side to cause the enemy forces damage and be able to try and end the conflict as quickly as possible. And so I would generally be with 65% as well. It has largely entered a total war phase because of that fact alone. But moving us on out of that poll and on into the rest of our news from the front lines in Ukraine, which we don't really have a huge amount of tonight, we were able to see the Russian cashier report over the past 24 hours, and holy moly!
They got 3 Bobcats today. Look at it. They got 3 of them. That's a trio.
That's a trio. Let's see. I don't know how to count in Russian. I was trying my best, but Ms. Isik here for the record stated that 28 tanks is the 10th highest daily loss, which is very impressive, and the highest since May 13th of 2024, over 2 years ago. 78 artillery is tied as the 19th highest, 541 vehicles and supply trucks is ranked as the 5th highest, and 13 ground robotics is tied as the 13th highest, which is not shown. And over the course of the past 24 hours, 1,460 Russian soldiers were wounded and killed, along with 12 APCs, 541 supply trucks, 28 main battle tanks, one of the largest numbers that we've seen, and that was because of the failed armored assault in the Donetsk region yesterday, 78 artillery pieces, 1,688 drones, 3 MLRSs, 3 cruise missiles, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 3 Bobcat skid steers. All in all, a very good thing to see, and nice to see the Ukrainians are whipping them up on the Russians. But it actually appears that we're now finally getting reports out of the Middle East of heavy air defense fire. What we got here?
So it looks like we got a video here allegedly showing the air defense systems going absolutely berserk over Jordan right now. It looks like it's probably the Patriot system firing off nonstop. So we can take a look at this. I think it's a very short video here too.
And that's all the news. But yeah, that was
the 2 seconds of footage there. Yeah, it's a lot of interceptors being fired. I think there's 3 right there in that one clip, or 4 possibly.
3. But it looks like there was another 2 that were fired before, so there was about 5 of them that were on this clip. It's just that 2 of them are well beyond the scope of the cameraman.
Yeah, I think so. So there's definitely some active interceptions going on. Hopefully no impacts that we hear about. But yeah, it seems like there's a bit of a shortage though. Wait, hold on a minute. Let's see here. Wait a minute. Let me check the veracity of this. Is this legit? I'm not so sure if this is legit right here. So I'm gonna repost this and let's take a look and see if this is legit or not. I'm sort of having some doubts about this, but they're claiming that there's photos being taken from Jerusalem as seeing the missiles being intercepted over Jordan.
Oh yeah, this is actually like real. Like they're not that far away, you know. Like here's Jerusalem, and to show you where Mufak is from there, it's only about 90 miles away. And if this stuff is exo-atmospheric and they're trying to conduct a near exo-atmospheric interception on a missile that's in its terminal phase coming back into the atmosphere, you probably would be able to see it from about 90 miles away.
Interesting. So apparently that is being filmed from Israel right there, if that is a recent photo. So they can see it all the way from Israel, which is kind of interesting. I mean, I guess you're right. If it is exo-atmospheric, that's a hard word to say for some reason, but they would see it from there, I guess 90 miles away.
Man, Mandy saw the picture from Israel and said, Israel? Okay, yes, it is real, in 2 different ways. But moving us on from this picture here, do we have any other updates coming out of the Jordanian situation?
So nothing really else right now, nothing really new. So we are seeing those interceptions right now, trying to get confirmation if there has been impacts. And Kuwait has gone silent. Kuwait's still getting attacked, but they've gone silent about what's happening there. So they've kind of gone into incognito mode, it sounds like. So waiting on updates from there as well.
And so hopefully we'll get updates soon, everyone. But moving us on back out of all of this news, and on back up and into Ukraine. It's time for us to get on into the front lines and cover the only 2 clips we have from the front today. In the Svatove-Kupiansk front, we were able to see that the 77th Air Mobile Brigade was targeting and hitting Russian forces and Russian logistics within this area, and once again degrading their frontline capabilities. When you see the first of many dirt bikes being destroyed, now the second, now the third, and a 4th one, and a 5th one, and a 6th one. The Russians are going to run out of these dirt bikes before long. We also see an ATV getting hit, and another ATV.
Automatic terrain vehicle.
I always thought it was AFV, America's Funniest Home Videos, but apparently that's a show, not a vehicle.
That's what the Ukrainians haven't done yet. They usually make parodies of these videos right here, and they'll put all kinds of comedy over, like emojis and memes and stuff. They haven't done that, where it's like a laugh track in the AFV format. Oh, yikes.
bro, he said it like a dog, man. He went, oh, yikes. I was like, oh,
I saw that clip right there. That was a very clear image there of that dude.
Man, they said take a little off the top, and the Ukrainians said, of course. And they obliged. They're very kind that way. Got the UAZ 452 getting hit. Goodness.
I don't think you really want a drop top Lada like in this environment. I think you want the hard top.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't really think it matches. It's like just a little sheet steel on top of a cover top one stopped the RPG-7 round from blasting straight through the roof. Not really. I mean, honestly, it doesn't matter when you think about it.
I would still rather take the hard top personally. I don't want that drop top one. It's not a place to cruise.
I don't know, man. I mean, like, honestly, man, I like to have the sun on my skin as the drone's coming down on top of me. That'd be kind of nice. Well, anyways, moving us on from there, moving us on down into the Kherson area, we also were able to see that the 38th Marine Brigade was operating one of their unmanned guided vehicles. This is a camera feed from that very unguided, or UGV, to say it that way. And that right there is a Russian FPV drone that's attempting to blow up the UGV. For the Russians, unfortunately, it was a dud. Just failed to blow up. So they just rolled back and looked at it a little and took a laugh. So, not really that crazy. A very uneventful clip. But that was quite literally everything that we had from the Ukrainian front lines today. It was something of an uneventful day in terms of video and picture evidence from the Ukrainian front line. But hopefully, we'll be getting more video and picture evidence here in the future of what has been going on those front lines in Ukraine. And so, with that in mind, folks, 2 hours and 13 minutes into our news, we are going to be continuing to cover breaking news, but that's actually all of the news that we had on file, in stock today to be able to report. And I gotta thank you all greatly for watching tonight. It has been an absolute honor and a pleasure to be able to cover all the news breaking and live with y'all. And while we will probably be seeing some more breaking news updates coming out here soon, we'll probably be seeing that those are somewhat few and far in between, most likely just covering the follow-ups to the Jordan missile attacks that we're watching right now, and then moving us on into our question segment, of which there is much to discuss. We have made it through so much news tonight, a breaking news stream, as a matter of fact, and it's done incredibly well. We had a peak viewership of 22,500 people here. That's quite literally just about 600 less live viewers than we had last night. Crazy right there. And also 173,000 people have watched this stream in the course of 2 hours and 12 minutes. I'm going to thank you all greatly for coming here in the millions, really, every single month to be able to watch this channel, because we're both incredibly honored and greatly appreciative to know that we get to share the news with each and every single one of y'all, and we're incredibly honored to know that many of y'all consider this to be your primary source of news. So many of y'all are considering it to be your primary source of news that just yesterday we were able to hit number 14 in the charts for the top 100 live streams on YouTube in the United States. That's pretty wild right there, and we're very thankful for all of y'all watching, and we hope that y'all keep watching. Oh, bragga. And so, with that in mind, it is time for us to get on into our questions and hopefully get some more breaking news on the Jordan situation that'll hopefully be coming out here over the next few minutes. So, what do we got, Matthew?
All right, and also real quick, just in case I happened to miss it earlier, did you cover that Woofers post talking about the ships, the total number that have been taken out by Ukraine so far in the Black Sea and the Azov Sea?
Oh no, I didn't cover it because it was just a little infographic of a ship.
Well, in that case, and to quickly cover that, just to hit on that one, because I thought it was a pretty big number that Ukraine put out today. In total, since Ukraine's been hitting all these different Russian ships that are trying to dock in Crimea, and also trying to dock on Russia's ports in Novorossiysk as well, Ukraine is literally about a day or two away from hitting the 200 mark of 200 Russian ships that has been hit over the course of the last 2 or 3 weeks. Right now, they're at 198 Russian ships hit, so that's truly remarkable to see as well. I think today they only hit one of them, so it kind of went down tremendously today. But the fact that almost 200 of those ships have been hit, I mean, that's a slaughter fest, to say the least, there in those 2 different areas of the sea. So I would say Ukraine's little blockade is still in full effect and going quite well.
I would agree. I mean, that thing's doing amazingly. Hopefully we'll be able to see that they get their 200th ship. That would be quite a lot of ships. I mean, you know, the Russians are full of shit. Maybe we can deprive them of their ships. But anyways, outside of that corny joke, but can I get a womp womp for that one? Can I get a womp womp? A little womp womp, just a small one. Hit that soundboard. Wrong one. wrong one. We're not supposed to be getting plus. Okay, let's try one more. Let's try one more now. Just a one. There we go. There we go. Third time's a charm.
Man, Discord's changed up the sound box a little bit. They've changed it where it's a frequently used box now, so now it's got them all in reverse.
Man, bro, you sat there and clicked every one with the womp womp, bro. I said, can I get a womp womp? Can I get a womp womp? And I got standing applause. I was like, okay, well, maybe another one, And then I got the ba-dum, and then I finally got the womp. All right, so with that in mind, everyone, now that I've gotten the standing ovation, a punchline, and also finally the womps, it's time for us to get on into the questions. And hopefully we'll be getting to everything as well in that sense with the questions. What do we got?
All right, so moving on to our super chat questions and getting our live chat questions right after that. And also, by the way, still scanning for breaking news that is imminent, by the way. I can guarantee we'll at least have a few more stories breaking out that's during the question segment tonight, I would imagine. Also, by the way, we are super early. It's 9:17 p.m. Mountain Time right now. Usually it's about 10:17 Mountain Time, an hour ahead. But we're starting an hour early tonight. I see some people loving that, and some people, honestly, I really haven't seen much hatred about that. We're going to keep our time the same, though, but I'm glad to see that didn't disrupting my schedules for the most part, starting an hour early. But it was worth going live an hour early because there was a lot of stuff happening, a lot of stuff that's still happening right now, to say the least. So anyway, with that, jumping into our first super chat, this one goes to Blind Man, who puts in a $50 support. And thank you, Blind Man, for always supporting the channel very generously. And we do appreciate that. He said, hello, enforcers. And if you ever visit an offset news press and there's a catastrophic failure, the 1,874 pounds reel of paper is only moving at about 43 kilometers an hour, about 27 miles per hour, easily dodgeable. Not that it happened. And anywho, song of the day is Back and Forth by Legrand.
Back and forth? That's how I feel sometimes in my life. Back and forth between decisions. And sometimes the decisions are good, and sometimes they're all right. But I'll tell you something, folks. It's important to make a decision and stick with it. Stick with your decisions, folks, and stand by them. When people say, hey, you're driving poorly, say, no, I'm not. All I did was run over a curb. That's all. I'm fine. I drive good, and just keep driving. In the modern day, folks, it's all the rage to be completely nose blind to anything that you do wrong. So remember that, folks. If you just stay on course with whatever the hell you're doing, whether it be right or wrong, as long as you're confident in it, You'll have that at least. But a big thanks to you for the support. Help this channel to keep it running, blind man. And also, outside of the joke on that song, that's very interesting. A 1,847 pound reel of paper. I always thought they were called like a ream of paper, because I'd always heard in like the railroading world when they talk about like the paper mills loading like the paper reels or reams onto a rail car, they always call them reams. I don't know why, but beyond that though, that is interesting. 26.9 miles an hour. Who in the world had the little like speedometer thing out to clock the speed on that thing, like to see how fast it was rolling? I'll be interested to know. But 1,900 pounds, that's pretty heavy right there. That could do some damage. Let's see, that's almost a ton actually. That's literally a ton of paper rolling around on the floor. So, I mean, I wouldn't want to take my chances with that. I don't know about y'all, but big thanks to you so much for the support, blind man, and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you who help to make this thing possible and help us to keep it rolling, and we're always greatly appreciative of that. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
Also, by the way, to address something else real quick, the Iranians are claiming that the U.S. hit a neighborhood, and they're saying it was in a Vaz or nearby to a Vaz called the Alu Akbar neighborhood. I'm not joking, by the way, it's legit the name of it. They're saying that 4 to 5 Iranians or actually 4 of them dead and 5 injured in the Alu Akbar neighborhood, which is a trip to say that, by the way. It's legit. They're saying that 4 are dead. We haven't gotten any confirmation of that. It sounds like it could be Iranian propaganda, because all the strikes that we've seen so far, it looks like it was mainly military strategic targets that were likely hit. We don't have an exact target list of what was destroyed yet, but I mean, the U.S. isn't in a habit of dropping bombs on neighborhoods, where they have had obviously some tragic mistakes, like one of them that was the most infamous about the school that was hit, but it's not a habit of the United States to do something like that. So I don't think there's any credibility to it. If there's new information that comes out, we'll say that, but I think that's more Iranian propaganda. It's like, also, how the hell do they know? It's like the attack just happened, so how would they know how many are dead yet? They haven't had a chance to even search.
Yeah, it seems quite questionable to me. So I wouldn't really take it with any credibility, folks, until there was there was absolutely verifiable proof that came out that happened. And just a written report doesn't really account for much, because the Iranians write down a whole bunch of things and almost none of them are true. So with that, I hope that does address that.
Also, I mean, the Allah Akbar neighborhood, I mean, let me pull this up. Is this legit? Let's see here. Allah Akbar neighborhood. Let's see here. Let's see. When you type that in on the internet, the first thing that pops up is a horrible tragedy that happened in New York 5 hours ago. That's not good. But let's see here. In Iran, let's see. Is that legit? Allah Akbar Rural District. It's a residential neighborhood. Hell, it's saying here that the Allah Akbar Hill residential neighborhood's in Bandar Abbas. It's not even in Avaj. So the location's not even right in the report. This is not outside of Avaj. This is in Bandar Abbas, that is. So, interesting. So, Allah Akbar Hill is apparently what it is. But I'm not buying that.
Man, here in the South, we live in a wonderful community. We live in the town of Praise Jesus. It's a beautiful town. It's like we have the Praise Jesus post office. We got the Praise Jesus barbecue. It's a wonderful time. It's like, honestly, that sounds like a satire sort of a thing. Like, several Iranians were dashed to bits in the Allahu Akbar neighborhood. It's like, I'm not gonna lie.
Can you see, like, if you punch that in, the Allah Akbar Hill neighborhood in Bandar Abbas, does it bring you to it? Like, what does it look like? I'm just curious what this neighborhood would even look like.
Spell it for me, blood.
What, Allah Akbar?
Well, the exact spelling. Like, is there any dashes or anything? I just need the exact spelling, blood.
It's ALLAH-O space AKBAR. Yeah, and then it's the Bandar Abbas area.
Well, there's actually a lot of these. There's the Jamia Masjid Allah Akbar neighborhood. There's the Allah. Right. Let's get to business. They have absolutely no street views here except for one. This looks like some shit straight out of a horror movie right here. Where the hell did the sky go? Like, where did it go? Man, it's going.
Man, that's the T3RB flying over right there. Just takes up the sky. Honestly, man, like, this is the only picture. Like, they don't really want to show this neighborhood too much.
Let's see here. What do we have in this backyard? We got some clothes out to dry. Let's see. We have more clothes out to dry. We have an HVAC unit that has a table on top of it. Honestly, I will say, HVAC unit in Iran probably very important to have. They have
cooking something on top of the AC.
No, I think it's just stuff they put up there. It's like a shelf, like, kind of.
Interesting. I think that might interfere with the way the AC operates if the condenser can't get any air to it.
And then they have a bucket blow, which is apparently showing that this thing's got a drip going on. Maybe. And then they have like this little sitting area, this very scary looking child's bike, like that looks like it's literally in a horror movie. Tons and tons of sandals out in front of the door, like there's like dozens of sets of them. Also, they have the blue water drum. That's like, I like those are all over the place in most parts of the world. And then we have A Subaru? I don't know. It might be.
I don't think that's a Subaru. I've never seen one looking like that.
I don't know cause, man. I'm just taking my best guess, you know. And then we got another HVAC unit with a shelf on top and then a red light on the wall. More clothes out to dry. Another bucket and like a stool.
Is there not like a Google Images like of the place? Like, did they have some images that show the place? Like, if you go back, like, did they have any?
No.
Is there any like a restaurant or something that we can click on and get some pictures? I'm just trying to get some visual reference. I want to know what the Allah Akbar neighborhood looks like.
Oh, I can tell you it looks like shit. I can tell you that by satellite. It looks like a Brazilian slum.
Oh man, honestly, there was some little pin right there. Oh, there's no pictures on that. They don't like pictures. What about that park over there or anything?
Nothing,
oh, no pictures.
How about the soccer field? Okay, they have.
Oh, they got some.
All right, so we have the local soccer team. They're kind of short a couple of players, but oh well. Let's see, just pictures of the teams. Well, how about this falafel shop over here? Maybe. Okay, so here's a couple.
Oh, we got pictures.
This is the only picture. Why are all the pictures taken at night around here? I wonder.
It almost seems like they're allergic to the camera.
It almost seems like they're allergic to broad daylight. Oh, look, there's a confectionery here. Okay, so this gives us a little bit better of an idea. We see this guy working on something. Looks like some sort of like candy bars, maybe. Here's another picture of some of these things. Okay, so all right, so I hate to tell you, but there's really nothing coming out of this neighborhood. Like, there's stuff on the perimeter around it, but like this is a void of pictures. Like, there's a black hole going on here.
Yeah, I think they don't like pictures. They don't really want this place to be shown for some reason. Not really sure why, but you'd think that if it was really, look, there's a street view on some part of it up there at the top.
Let's take a look. Oh, well, that's just shit. Well, anyways. Oh my god. Oh, well, let's press on. This big ass logo in the way. Oh, look.
This is awful.
I'm not gonna lie. This looks like that Louis Theroux documentary where he went to Lagos, Nigeria, and he was like with the union leader guy who was like, blasted, like that's
the union.
You go to Shambok him, like it looks like that place. Like it's looking not great.
I feel like you could do like an Anthony Bourdain of this place. Like you can show up. The heat here is not the temperature; it's a physical object. It has weight and attention, and that like humdrum style, like he's like showing up in and stuff like that. Really, this place is like this is a part unknown. I mean, this is a pretty rough looking place.
Oh my god, man! Legitimately, man. Like, I gotta tell you, folks, I've been on an absolute binge off air of watching Louis Theroux documentaries. Like, I don't know why, but they are just wildly fascinating. Like, they're very fun to watch. And I was watching one yesterday where he was in Nigeria, and they had like these freaking like neon colored T-shirt like police officers. Have you seen that one, Matthew, before?
I think so.
And like the police chief guy is like going around, he's like, let's rip it down. And then they like bring in like literally right then and there, they just bring in the demolition vehicle and start destroying their shop. And there's people on the street like, they're destroying my shop. Like, I'm a tenant here, and like they're going off and stuff. It was absolutely mental. This place looks just like that. Like, no joke, it looks identical. And I'm not gonna lie, it didn't look that good in the documentary, so I'm saying that with it not being like, oh well, it's fine. It looks pretty bad. What about Central Bandar Abbas down here? Like, what does this look like? Oh, they didn't. Why did the man not want to go down there? Come on, man.
Not even the Google man wants to drop down.
Bro, the Google man's going, He's like, your ass is getting down there, boy. No, what the hell? Get down there. Oh, what is? Okay, hold up.
I want to go down there.
Boy!
Look at it. It just will not go down. Zoom in closer to the street.
We're going to get right on it. He doesn't want to.
It's refusing to go down. Look at that. I've never seen like the Google man refuse to drop down the street view. I mean, it literally will not go on the street. Oh,
see, he'll go up here. Oh god, it's this. Oh, up modern.
Yeah, man, it's like a complete lie.
They took a brick shit house and put like a facade on it, and then put it on the top. Modern, bro. That's like the definition of like deceptive advertising or something. Probably it's like, oh man, that's something. Well, what about there's got to be something going on down here that we can see, right? I mean, like anything at all? Maybe these bubbles. Oh, you'll go to the bubbles, huh?
Oh wow, it's a very vivid street right here. Look, he's standing on somebody's head.